December 5th. Excellent news. It is Thursday, December 5th at 6:31 p.m. and I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of GOL to order and make sure everyone can hear me and be heard. Let's start with Lynn Griesmer.
Present.
Thank you. George Ryan.
I'm here.
All right. Pat DeAngelis.
Present.
Great. Paul Bockelman has joined. Oh, wait. Counselor Ette, and then I'll get to Paul. Sorry. Counselor Ette. Can you, yeah, okay. Thank you. And Paul Bockelman has joined us as well. Can you hear us, Paul?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. So, we have a couple things before us today, and I appreciate folks who are able to stay longer to kind of try to get things wrapped up. We're going to start with the town manager goals, and I want to appreciate George for putting some really good thought in to these and sending us some action items. We also included in your packet the ECAC report for folks to reference as we go through. So I'm going to stand by. We're going to start on our agenda with public comment. We do not currently have any attendees, but this would be the point where if there were attendees, they could tell us all the things that they have on their mind. And so after that, we are going to move to the town manager goals. Does that sound good to anybody or everybody? Anyone? Everyone? Okay. So, I'm calling to order twice and public commenting twice. My bad on the agenda. I'm going to pull up the working document that we've been doing. George, do you want to represent your pages verbally, or do you want me to pull them up so you can talk us through what you put in?
I think it would be helpful if people could see.
Absolutely. Let me
yeah.
pull that up.
I've spent some time looking at it, so I think it would be helpful.
Okay. Yep. Let me get that. Hang on one moment. I just have to download it because otherwise it does everything weird. Okay. And then I also have some comments from Mandy Jo as well, that I will.
Did she comment on your version or?
On the version that was in the packet, yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay. All right, George. Can everybody see this okay? Do you want me to
Yes.
blow it up a little bit bigger?
Little.
Maybe. Is that better?
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Maybe a little, yeah. That's good.
Okay. George, do you have
Yeah, I can say just one or two
specifics?
very brief things about, because this is different than what we've been working with, as I think anyone would see quickly once they looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of was inspired by, I know initially I resisted Lynn's
George, can you
suggestion.
speak up, please?
I'm sorry?
Can you speak louder?
Louder? Okay. I basically took the policy goals and shrunk them to 3. So that's a big change, and it's something we should talk about. So when you look at this document, instead of the 5 policy goals that we have been working with, I took from what Lynn had said earlier and said, let me just try it with just 3. So climate action is 1. And if we scroll down for a second, what I thought was taking the second community I call it well-being, but community well-being, actually, is that? Hang on for a second. Yeah, and social justice is what I called this. And then the third became housing and economic vitality. So that's the first thing that I did that is different, to try and basically create 3 policy goals and 3 managerial goals. We're not, so we need to think about that. If we go back up, and what I tried to do with the objectives is not toy with them very much at all, but in this case, for instance, I took some of the language from action items and put it into the objective under the principle that we want the objective area to be as broad as sort of big picture as possible. And action items should be the kinds of things that we can, in essence, say check or no check, done or not done. So that was the principle behind what I tried to do with objectives. And then in action items, I just either I struck things that I thought could come out, or I put in lots of things that I thought would be worth discussing. And they're just obviously just suggestions. And so that's the first thing. That was kind of what drove me to do this.
Thank you. Counselor Ette, did you have a question or comment on this? You would raise your hand and then.
Yeah, I was thinking about the action items, and we have here support. What would support look like? Support the development, and what would take actions related to? They are some actions that one could take towards CARP that would not be praiseworthy. So are we keeping it broad, or are we going to chisel it down into something that is a bit smoother?
I think you put your finger on a problem right from the get-go. And there, I think we just have to talk it through. I have, and we have in the documents in today's packet, and we've gotten, I think, also an email from Darcy Dumont, and also, I think, something from the Coalition of People Involved in Climate Action. And they have a whole host of recommendations and suggestions. And I don't know which ones should be included in here, but I agree that this first support the development of climate action, take actions related to CARP. That language is just very, it just basically leaves it open as to what specific actions we're asking the town manager to take. And I assume it would be based on input he's getting from these various, active supporters, various, but yeah, how specific do we want to get here? I don't know.
So-
I'm uncomfortable and ill-equipped to do it.
George, I'm raising my hand here. I don't have a problem with condensing it down to the 3 goal areas, but I do have a problem with just one objective per area because I think we've kind of gotten a little bit too close to just recreating in table format what we had before. And so I think that this is a good start in terms of narrowing down goal areas, but I agree that there are many things in here that are still too up for interpretation, and that I think if we're giving specific direction, it should be specific. And so I would support us moving what we had done last time with some areas had multiple objectives, which I think lends itself to more actionable action items. And so I would prefer that method of having the objective broken out. I also do not like this because it means nothing. And I think I talked about this last time. No one has defined what a climate lens is. And so I don't think that it's fair to put it in as an objective here unless we can define it. So I do support breaking it down into 3 goal areas, but I would like us to break out the objectives again. And I think that as we go through today, getting more specific in the action items is going to be important because I think, support the development. We see this. Some people wanted more, some people wanted less. I think we need to be clear on what the expectation is, so that we're being fair in our goals and our evaluation. That's my thought. Lynn?
So if we look back at what we've done in the past, we've had one objective with then 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever. Those would be the bullets, I believe, here. So if we can condense the objective into kind of one, and I find the whole climate lens thing very useless. In fact, if anything, later on, we should ask that the town manager use the goals as a lens for all of them, not just climate, but racial justice, et cetera. So when I see something like, going back to Councilor Ette's question, when I see something like support, that to me, that means, Paul, you, the town manager, along with your staff, should support the council and either bring forth yourselves or help us write things like waste hauler bylaws, solar bylaws, et cetera. That's to me what support means. And then when I say take action, related to the climate action adaptation and so forth. There's a really serious plan. ECAC works hard on that plan. If I'm not mistaken, George, some of these words like buildings, transportation, energy, waste, et cetera, came from that climate group. So it's kind of saying, in doing the plan, let's focus on this. And then the third one, not using the one that struck out, my only concern here is that this is money that may end up going away under the new administration, but nevertheless, it's part of what we want to do for the school. And because that was always the hope that this money would be the kind of money we could use to get solar panels. And then the climate leader community designation, that's something that I understand that Stephanie has been working on. That's actually an administrative decision, but it does mean the town council will have to understand that decision when we see, budget priorities. So I'm arguing two things. I'm arguing, first of all, that like we had in the past, we had one lead sentence or one lead phrase that would be the objective, and then under it, we had several action items. And that's what this does.
So I strongly disagree. Go ahead, Pat. I've already spoken. You can go. You're muted. You're muted. Are you able to unmute, Pat?
I'm sorry.
No worries.
I like this structure. I think the objective should be clear and direct. And I think the action items should be in a separate column there. I would, so I don't agree with you, Anna. I like this structure. But here's what I want to know, and I want to know it from Paul Bockelman. Because one of the things that I feel like is I, as a counselor, would like to have you much more vocally and independently involved as we create this, because it's what you're working from. And as counselors, we don't agree on everything. And I guess I want to understand honestly and how you use this document. And do you need us to say, do A, then B, then C? And I don't think that's true, but I would like to hear from you.
So I do want to hear from Paul, but I also would like to clarify, Pat, because what you said about objectives here and action items here is not what I was pushing back on. I wanted to clarify and pull up the document we'd been working on before, and if folks still disagree with it, that's fine. But the whole purpose of breaking these out into having different objectives in each goal area was that people's ratings and rankings and all of that get totally mushed together when you have multiple objectives squished in and each of them has their own action items. So what I was trying to do with the initial document was the idea, so this was the initial version we were working with last week, which was that it's kind of like when we have a resolution, we break out all of the ands into different columns. We don't smush them together. So we talked about having one objective is to continue to make progress on the council's climate action goals. And then here's where we would specify which ones those were. And we talked about referencing the ECAC report. And then support the development of climate action focused bylaws as a separate objective. The reason for that is because when we start to mush it all together, people's feedback gets all mushy. It gets kind of they pick one or the other, or they kind of combine it and we end up with an average in the middle every time. So for me, breaking out the objectives and not to a crazy number, allow us to address the things that we want to address within these areas, which I think is particularly important as we talk about condensing categories, which we did in some of the areas below. So for me, that was that's why I feel strongly about having not forcing ourselves into one objective per area. We have been doing one objective per area for years. It's not working. That's part of the whole reason why we're looking at this. So I do feel strongly that that multiple objectives per area helps us to be clearer and be more focused in what we're asking be the priorities in the coming year. I just wanted to clarify. And again, this is what I think this committee came up with. This is not something that I've completely done on my own. So if the committee wants to go to one objective per goal area, totally fine. I will obviously respect the will of the committee, but that was why we broke it into multiples last time. Lynn.
Yeah, thanks. Pat and George may remember this. When we first, the first year or two that we did the evaluation for the town manager, we would actually rate them on all of those activities, okay? And then it got to be like 96, and it was ridiculous. But if we ended up with 3 policy goals and 3 administrative goal, or whatever they're called, administrative goals, and under each of the goals, we had like 3 or 4 actions, we could go back to rating by activity without it being as burdensome. And it would allow counselors to say, yes, no, superior or whatever, commendable at one and something else on another. So I don't want to be driven to the idea of beyond a single objective by the fact that we can change the evaluation system as long as we don't end up with 96
No.
sub-objectives or whatever we want to call them. That's all.
So
I just want to
Lynn,
refresh our memory on that.
yeah, and I think I just the way that I think this would work best in the system we had designed before would be that folks do offer a rating on each objective by looking at were the action items completed. And so, if we're making good actionable items in that action items column in the green column, they should be able to say, this is complete, this is in progress, etc. And then that drives the rating for the objective. Otherwise, I think it stays in this weird 2 up for interpretation space. But George.
I'm getting the sense that we're letting the evaluation process and the challenge that poses each of us at the end of each year. And the issue of choosing and rating and so on and all that to control what I think is the far more important task here, which is to create a document that clearly lays out the core objectives of the coming year and the things that we'd like Paul to concentrate on. I really don't care in the end about the rating system and how it plays out. Obviously, it does have practical impacts, and I'm not indifferent to that. But I think our focus here should be, and that's what you're raising that on to some degree as well, on just making sure that this document, to the best of our ability, presents clear objectives and action statements that will help the town manager in the coming year, guide staff, and it reflects, we hope, the broad will of the council. And so your point is that under objective, it might make sense to have at least 2 here as we had originally, and I then clumped it into 1. And I'd like us to focus on that and then on identifying some specific action items and not be so concerned about how is this actually going to play out when we come to rating Paul and how it gets played out when we construct the document. I don't really care about that. What I care about is creating something that we feel like actually says something and gives Paul some clear direction, and he will weigh in at some point on this as well. But I don't really care about the rating stuff. So right now the question is, do we want to go back to the 2 objectives in this first category? And then we need to look at the action items and see if we're happy with them or want to add some or take some out. And that's what we should be focused on, I think, here, and not, how we can, at the end of the year, we have to kind of put numbers to things and 3.2 and whatever. I don't care about that. So do we want to, it's a question to all of you and to Frecky too here. Do you want to separate this out into 2? I don't really, that's fine by me. And then let's get some action items attached to it and let's go through this document.
Yeah. Counselor Ate?
We have kept the town manager on pause for a while, and I'm actually interested in what he has to say, which was raised by Pat. what does what do the documents look like to the town manager that would give us a direction. That being said, I would respond to George by noting that it isn't only the councillors who end up looking at the document to rate the town manager.
Mhm.
We this year already had members of the public do so. And even if that doesn't mean much for us, it does mean a little bit to the public. And so we do have to weigh the balance of something that is clear enough for the town manager, while at the same time also clear enough for the public to be able to look at the government in town and have an idea of whether it's doing its work well.
Thank you, Councilor Ate. Paul, I didn't call on you because you didn't raise your hand. I'm assuming that do you have something at this point that you'd be willing to share?
Sure. So I think, the number of objectives is kind of, I'm always looking at the third column, the action items. That's really where the bread and butter is.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important for you to say what you want. And I think that does drive our actions because they are action items, and that's how we're going to be measured. Certain ones like the becoming a climate leader community does have impacts. It has budgetary impacts and things like that. And some of them that might require a more vigorous conversation, in the process, in terms of what we can accomplish as a climate leader community, or and I think that so I really am focused more on the action items because I'm a really concrete person. But I think Preke, I think is accurate that this is a public document as well. You're speaking to your constituents as well as to the staff. So I think the constituents are going to say, are you capturing everything we think you as a council should be highlight or prioritizing for our community? And I think over the last few years, we've really sort of narrowed down the priorities really well. And it's been really helpful because it's been consistent from year to year, pretty much. That makes it really easy for staff to know what the priorities are of the council. The council has been pretty consistent about you're not adding brand new things, a whole lot of brand new things every year. There's always a couple things that pop up, but so I don't really think that is I think that the idea of I think creating bylaws is a tool. That's an action item. That's not an objective. The objective isn't to create bylaws, it's to achieve something. So I would look at that objective thing to see what are we really saying in that objective list. So again, I think the energy would be better spent on the action items versus the objectives.
I agree. Oh, sorry, Lynn.
Yeah, so I just went and looked at the CARP plan.
Mhm.
And I don't want to request that we pull it up, but the fifth item under the CARP plan is municipal policy. So in other words, bylaws.
Mhm.
So putting bylaws into action, to me, is consistent with supporting the CARP plan. That's all.
I think that's a fair point. So to prioritize our time here, what I'd like to do, I want to know, I want to focus us on action items, and I've got some feedback from Andy. I got some feedback from George. I've got some that are populated in here that we could work with, but what I don't want to do is just ignore. I want to commit to coming back to the objectives and having that conversation as well. And so I want to kind of affirm that we're not dropping that conversation, but we're going to shift to action items because I do think that George, in looking at the objectives you wrote, I think they kind of combine what we had before with some slight shifts. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the smartest order because let me straw poll of the group, unless George is what you're about to say is like helping me get to a solution here. Because what I was going to say is let's straw poll if folks are comfortable combining into the 3 goal areas that you proposed. And then so
with that.
quick
Yeah.
straw poll here. Are folks, so prior to this, we had the goal areas and under policy as climate action, community health and safety, economic vitality, housing affordability, racial equity, and social justice. And George's proposal has it down to climate action, community well-being and social justice, and housing and economic vitality. Are folks comfortable squishing down to those three? Okay, so I'm noting here that we will squish into those three. We're going to skip objectives for the time being and shift to action items. George, my screen is just too small to have all of these open. Would you, I have the draft with my and Mandy's comments. Would you be able to share, not share your screen, but as we go through, would you be able to tell me what you have in yours? As if we're missing it?
Um,
I can just copy it. Hang on, let me just copy it.
yeah, I can certainly try. Absolutely. It's just, I don't know the level. I haven't had a chance, shamefully to say, to look at what you've done. I've been working all day on what I created and,
Totally fine.
no, but
I-
correlating with Paul's document, and trying to, so I've been focused exclusively on this. And so I don't know which has more detail. I would take whichever one has the more detail, and then you can take stuff out or add stuff in. But if you're constantly adding stuff into something, it's gonna get, so.
All right, so I just copied just for the first one. I'll go through as we get through it. I'll do this for each one. Just gonna turn this off for a second. All right. Share.
Which one, I'm sorry,
You're fine.
which one breaks it down into the three goals? I think
It's my
it's
document.
George's.
Yeah, it's mine. yeah.
George's breaks it into the three goals. I think what I worry about is that if we start with George's, then decide to go. I'm trying to avoid the objectives conversation right now, and with George's, we can smush them down and debate which objectives need to go. If
Well,
that makes
on
sense.
the first one, we're basically, we're really talking about two sentences, and one suggestion would be just drop that last clause and put it back where it was, and just leave the objective to be to continue to make progress on the CARP and prepare the town to be resilient in the face of climate change. That seems to be a perfectly clear and lucid statement of our climate action objective. Nobody's offered anything else in addition to that. What I did is just take one of what was an action item and attach it to the objective category. And quite frankly, they could just go back to the action item category. It could just be dropped completely. I think some people don't like that phrase anyway. So I think we could settle the objective right here. You
Okay.
have it as a separate objective, so you might want to make an argument for why you want it as a separate objective. My thought is either just drop it or put it back under action item.
Okay, Lynn?
Yeah, maybe it's because I spent more time on the other. I think in going back to the one that George put in, but if it's all, I think, George, am I correct? Because many of these phrases sound very familiar. You went back to the old bylaws and you, I mean, the old evaluation
Manager,
form, the
right,
old set of
right,
goals,
yeah,
and
yes,
you
yes.
put all of those action items initially maybe in here and then got rid of some.
That's part of what I did, but I also took a look at the documents we've been sent by the various climate action activists and advocates who have a much better grasp of what's been going on. Also look closely at Paul's very detailed description in his self-evaluation of what's been accomplished, which is quite impressive. And at that point, I felt like I was in over my head and not able to make a decision as to what definitely should be here and what shouldn't as far as actions. And so I picked a couple that I thought stood out, but I'm going to need help. As far as the objectives goes, I pretty much was working with the document we had right in front of us with what Anna had created and we had created last time. And I thought, well, let's put, the lens phrase into this category, into objectives because it's broad in general, but quite frankly, at this point, I don't really care. Could take it out, put it back where it was. But the objective, I think, is pretty clearly stated. Unless somebody has another objective they'd like to add here, I think, yeah, I'll shut up.
Lynn, your hand is still up, and then my hand is up after.
So if I look at this just very quickly, if we take the very top goal that's up under objectives, I'm sorry, the very objective,
This one.
and we stay with that, although I think Darcy was the one that suggested the word resilience, and I guess it's in there. Resilience in the face of climate change, and just stop there. And then if we look over on under the action items, you've already moved the 4 action items that George had. And then I guess these others maybe come from Mandy Jo or from you. And
Yeah.
the only one I see that's seriously different is the capital inventory.
That's been a discussion though. That's not totally new. I
Okay,
don't think.
it has been a discussion.
Yeah.
So the bylaw one, it's just worded differently.
Right.
So rather than spend a whole lot more time on here, for the time being, I would include the capital inventory as an action item along with the 4 that are already there that I guess those are George's. And then I'd get rid of this waste hauler thing because we already have a bylaw one.
Yeah, this was Mandy's ad. I think this was
Well, maybe there's pieces of it.
suggestions. I'm just noting
Yeah.
there were some that I was like, we haven't discussed these as a council. So I think this is where this could be very much the place to say the council wants to debate it and charge it. I think this is the problem we get into often is like, so hypothetically, I don't know that Mandy has any plans to do this, but hypothetically, if she's planning to bring forward a bylaw on banning 2-stroke engines and it's not in the goals, it's really hard to then justify the use of staff time and Paul's time and energy on this, right? So I do I think that was why initially we had I don't to be honest, I do not mind. I don't like the wording of this one. I
Mhm.
don't mind keeping this one at 1
Yeah.
because Lynn, I agree with you. The CARP talks about development of bylaws.
Mhm.
Why this was broken out was because the council last time felt the need to very explicitly state some things like waste hauler, et cetera, et cetera. But if we have them clearly spelled out in an action item, maybe that'll be enough for that area.
So here's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Take after the word, in the area where it says, and other potential bylaws, just put in parentheses, e.g., bylaws that reduce, just take that whole phrase that Mandy Jo gave you
Yeah.
and put it there and get rid of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then take the inventory and put it down here.
Sorry,
You can't see my finger, I'm sorry.
I can't.
Okay.
Take what and
the
put it where?
Include the capital inventory and put that in the group down there.
I mean, I can just merge these all if they're in an
That's-
action item. I'm gonna arrange this so that it's a nice table after, but
Right.
okay.
Okay, and then just get rid of under the objectives, get rid of the second and the third one, and we're
Are
done
there
with it.
any action items? Oh my God, stop. Are there any action items in this current, we're just looking at climate action right now, that folks object to? So just to reiterate them, include in the capital inventory a timeline for the transition of vehicles, support the development of climate action focused bylaws. I'm paraphrasing. Take
Mhm.
actions related to the CARP that reduce emissions in the areas of home, multifamily apartment complexes, and commercial buildings. This is one that has been the focus from ECAC too. Leverage Inflation Reduction Act funds for municipal services. My question on this one, just as an aside, is how do we know what does that mean? How do we know that that's occurring? So that's the only one that I really find objectionable. And seek climate leader community designation and accompanying funding. I want to just say one thing on this. We had the conversation last week about leverage federal funds and what that looked like. And my recollection, one of the things we talked about was that is good financial practice, financial management, right? And so that should be something that is assumed under that policy area. And we don't necessarily need to specify it because not it's not necessarily one, something we can always control, but 2, it's not, yeah, I don't know. That's my statement on that. I don't know that this is a fair action item to put in there.
Why don't you just put a note behind it that say, may be covered under finance, and then that's.
Like a comment, or you mean in the
Yeah,
actual?
a comment,
Mhm.
because George, I believe when you went to finance, you talked about leveraging grant funds.
You're talking to me?
Yeah,
I've never gone to finance. They would never let me.
Never
the
in your
room.
life?
I meant
No,
in
never
your
let me in the room.
financial goal down below.
Oh, down below. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest taking Leverage Inflation Reduction Act out.
Mhm.
Just remove it because quite frankly, I can't explain it. It was taken from some of these documents, and unless someone has a better understanding of it than I do, I think we could take it out. And
I'm
who knows
not
if the
opposed to
Inflation
that.
Reduction Act
I'm
is
not
even going to
opposed to that.
exist.
I know.
Yeah. That's one of the other things is,
Ugh.
I'm sorry.
and Anna, you're absolutely correct. We should apply for every and any grant we can to help achieve these goals. That's what this means.
Yeah. But that also should be in the financial guidelines, right?
Mhm.
Not necessarily
Right.
in the goals.
Right.
Right.
All right. So where we're at here, I will clean this, but we've got Paul. This is where I'm going to look to you.
Yes. Now,
We got you to 4 action items under climate action here. Working on the capital inventory, not doing the whole thing, but a timeline for the transition of municipal buildings, vehicles, and equipment. Supporting development of climate action focused bylaws, including the waste hauler bylaw, solar bylaw, and other potential bylaws. I know that's kind of big and broad and might not be ideal, but that's where we are for now. Take actions related to the CARB that reduce emissions in the areas of home, multifamily apartment, and commercial building, transportation, energy, waste, and carbon sequestration, and seek the climate leader community designation and accompanying funding from the Department of Energy. Or doer, yeah.
So, I mean, so the challenge on this is going to be money. It's,
Mm-hmm.
so we're looking, we are evaluating every building. We're going to be able, the capital needs of the town are intense. And if we're looking at a project, a finance that has $3 million in capital projects every year, it's going to take us 30, 40 years to do what we need to do. And
Are you talking about this one? So I'm sorry. Are you talking about
yeah,
this specifically? Okay.
buildings, and then the reality with vehicles, there's just not options. There's nothing. There's no availability, even if you wanted to buy vehicles. And I think there's a real question amongst our professional staff as to whether it makes sense to go, all electric on many vehicles. They will not. They say they can't meet their mission with this. Yeah, I think the way we're doing it is pretty good. Hybrid cop cars and putting the batteries on ambulances and fire trucks and things like that. But the electric technology isn't sufficient unless we like double the number of vehicles we have for a snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Because we put every vehicle on the road for 12 hours straight.
Can I ask a question on that? Would this be less, maybe it's not a timeline, but it's a outline of what would be necessary in order to do a transition?
Yeah.
It's something like that, like because I ask this question every year that I'm allowed on JCPC, right? And this year I asked Gabe if he wanted a Tesla, and it was a fun conversation. But I mean, I think that do you think this is more about explaining to the council what would be necessary in order to do the work we do, not on fossil fuels? And that might not be a timeline. It might be we need them to make an all electric dump truck that doesn't need charging every 4 hours or something like that. Like, do you think that might be more possible?
I think that's I like that idea a lot better because it's like come up with even if you say realistic plan, people are going to look at it and say it's really, because it's going to be if we're, decarbonizing our buildings, it's just a lot to get to.
Phrase this.
Even if we make a list of the things that have to happen,
If you use the word plan, it includes all of that. Plans include
a plan
you can
for
do this, you can't
transition.
do that.
Yeah.
Here's a timeline for this. You can't put that in the timeline. So if you just use the word plan.
But a plan would imply finances for it though, like here's our plan. How are you going to finance it? I mean, if I'm the council, the first question I ask, how are you going to finance it? We don't have a financing mechanism.
Okay. I understand. To me, that's
Athena.
Can I offer just using the word criteria in there?
Yes, thank you. That's so much better. I was like, this is not correct.
that's good.
All right.
Criteria.
The criteria for, okay. All right, so include in the capital inventory criteria for the transition of municipal buildings, vehicles, and equipment from the use, away from the use of fossil fuels. Does that sound more feasible, Paul? And
Yeah, you might want to say, well, what's your 3-year plan or 5-year plan? Like, tell me what your priorities are. I think that would be a useful exercise. That's something that people can get, when we say move every vehicle, or eliminate all these things, these big picture items, just like, well, what do you plan to do within your budget over the next 3 to 5 years?
okay. All right, thank you. That's very helpful. Um, Paul, any thoughts on this second or the next three?
Are we including the language that's highlighted in red?
Yeah, I'm tracking my changes just so you all can see as I'm typing.
So,
This came from Mandy. This was, yeah.
right, and this is going to be news to everybody, including yours truly, and they're
Oh,
going to have
yeah.
1,000 questions about it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
maybe we just leave it as other potential bylaws, because that covers it. If Mandy does, in fact, or somebody does come forward with a bylaw such as this, it falls within this description. It's a potential bylaw related to climate action. I don't, what's the point of putting it in here if it hasn't been presented and we have no idea if anyone's going to present it? Why are we offering it as an example? Why not just, even though she's, just say another potential bylaws?
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think my question is, how do we then make sure that we're protecting Paul's time so that the council doesn't refer 17 new, I mean, let's
Well,
be
we're the
honest
ones
about
who
the
vote to
rate.
refer it. We could vote not to refer it. We could,
But I think that's we need to make sure that we as a council are having that conversation a bit more realistically than I think we always have. So, and that's on us. I get that.
we should
Um,
create a separate document, which is for the council, for the goals, for the
Rules
council
of
in the coming
procedure.
year.
People can only, anyway, okay. Objections to me deleting the phrase in red. Speak now. Okay, great. Excellent news. I mean, excellent work. Sorry. Paul, any other feedback on climate action before we get into the next one?
No.
I mean,
Okay.
if I may interrupt, what I take this to be saying is that Paul and staff are doing a great job in a whole lot of areas. Keep doing it, is really what this says. I don't know if that's what Paul gets out of it, but that's what I kind of mean by it, because it doesn't have anything explicit. Or again, Paul, what your thought?
Yeah, well, it's not Paul, it's usually Stephanie or Jeremy. No,
Yeah.
No,
right.
sure, but yeah, what would they make of this?
But the climate leader community, the only thing that will happen is we will pursue that. We will say we intend to convert our rolling fleet to electric, and then it's going to be impossible to do that. Like schools is a minor thing, but there's a lot of infrastructure that has to get built if they want to go to all electric buses, and they're not going to have funds to do that. That's why we'll seek grants to do it. But I think once we say we're that'll be a challenge to do, but I think it's an okay challenge. It does open the door to lots of extra money, especially if we do it right now. So I think it's an advantage to doing it right now.
So Paul, you do think it's possible for us to do, though it won't be easy, as opposed to there's no way we can do this in the foreseeable future? Because if that's the case, we should just take it out.
No, I think the danger is that the community says, you said you were going to do this, now you aren't. And I think when I talked with Stephanie, what the state is saying is just declare your intentions. You don't have to actually do it. They're trying to get people to say, we're intending to do this. That's one of the
Oh,
key.
We
good.
do
We're
say
saying, please
seek.
do that,
We
right.
don't say obtain.
Yeah, okay.
We say
Say
seek.
seek.
Yeah. Just do your best. Okay.
Yeah, and you shall find.
I want to do a time check.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to move us along. All right. Thank you, Lynn. Okay. So community health and safety. Let me copy over what George had real quick. Give me 1 minute, please. Any just conversation on this before we get started? Oh, I have some conversation. Sorry. I was at the finance committee meeting where they talked about what they were putting in the budget guidelines regarding CRESS. And we already had the assessment in here, but they affirmed that part as well as something that they wanted to, basically the gist of it, if anyone else was there, was that they wanted to initially put it in the budget guidelines, and then they said, no, this is more of a rule than a budget guideline. So that's where we got. Wow. George, there's so many
Remember,
things.
this is combining two.
No, oh, you're right, you're right, you're right. Thank you. Okay, let's start from the very beginning.
So let's get the
Conduct-
language. Can we get the language of the language
yeah,
of
sorry.
the
Yep.
objective is, for better or worse, to ensure the health and safety of the residents of Amherst and continue making advances in racial equity and social justice.
Yep, I'm gonna copy it in here too. Sorry, it's a long Whoop. All right, well, I will copy it in here once I figure out where my stupid thing is, but all right. This is George's language here. This
And
is the
that's,
second.
and
The
that's,
second
to-
is second piece is George's. There's too many sorry, there's too many items to it's splitting the page, but this is George, you had combined community health and safety and social justice, right? Is
That
that
is correct, yes.
okay? Okay. So let's look
When
at
we start, yeah.
I think that this is pretty clear as a combo. Okay. I'm comfortable with the new phrasing.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
I think the new phrasing's good.
Yep. Okay. All right. So we have two here. Assess the impact and effectiveness of the community responders for equity, safety, and service program, and then conduct assessment. So I think my issue here is I don't know that we want to dictate. I think this sounds fine, just kind of on face value, but I don't know that we want to dictate specifically what the assessment is about in that. I expect that this would be a big debate. I would
And
rather
just
frame
say
it as
assess.
conduct an assessment.
Fine.
Fine.
That I think is probably what.
If that's okay.
No,
Uh,
no, I hear, yeah.
All right, so then we have resident oversight board. We had this before.
Yep.
Because that still
Um,
is not, that's still in the works, so I think we should probably continue.
Right. I agree completely. And
Yeah.
and I'm counting on folks to raise a hand or raise your voice if you disagree. Continue to undertake a review of public safety protocols. This was also one we had last time as well. I'm seeing Paul nodding. Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Identify, develop, and coordinate programming for youth empowerment. This has been on every draft that I've gotten. Some people have crossed it out. Some people have said keep it in. So I think that this is an item that is for discussion. We last time had talked and said remove, and I agree with what we said. I agree with us 2 weeks ago. Remove because we don't know what completion of this goal looks like. So remove this unless the end goal and direction are clearly articulated and voted on by the council. Because what we looked at today, not today, oh my God, when we looked at the town manager self-evaluation this year, there's so much happening for youth empowerment. And yet the counselor feedback on this item varied pretty widely. And so I think that unless we are clearly articulating what we expect from this, I don't think that it's a fair thing to put in here. That's my take, but I'm happy to hear from other people. We had proposed last time as a committee taking this out. Not
When
because
I
it's
did this,
not
I was
important.
thinking of two groups of people in the community that I would like, I personally, and hope some of my colleagues would agree, we would like the manager to focus on in the coming year. One is obvious from what I've done here is seniors. The other is young people. And Paul, in his self-evaluation, has shown us that there's a fair amount of work happening in that area in terms of just finding out, A, what programs are out there and inventorying them and making sure we have a complete list. And secondly, still looking for space or spaces where they might be consolidated or whatever. I support that, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I realize there may be.
You want to keep it
cost
in? Okay.
Yeah, well, I think we should have something about youth in here. And we should have something about seniors in here.
Do we think, George? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to get to the senior stuff because I really appreciate you putting that in here. My question is, there were a significant number of opportunities available as reflected in the town manager self-evaluation. Are we going to expect the town manager to be developing new programming in the coming year? And is that going to be something that we expect every year? Or is it improve current programming. I think for me, it's what's the ask in the coming year? Counselor Ette?
I think you're touching upon something. There were a lot of activities. We already have seen then that the town has been developing some of those programming. So maybe that isn't as necessary in this clause as much as identifying what works and coordinating what works as well. If we find that there's some things that don't work, we'll take those out. We can then bring in new things, and that would be the development. But I don't think it is necessary. Putting it in here almost makes that an imperative in addition to everything else. But by taking it out, it leaves room, I believe, to see what works and what doesn't work.
Thank you. What about the word promote? Like, I think that this is the other piece, was that there was so much that was happening that clearly a lot of us did not. I mean, not that all of us have children and are in the target market here, but what if it's also identify, promote, and coordinate? So maybe they're not even developed by the town, or would folks like that? Okay.
I like that.
Okay. We know I have an issue with this one, and I will tell you why again and again and again. This is not actionable unless we define what a racial and social justice lens is. In the spirit of this is so good and so important. The reality of this is that it is not a definable action that the council would agree upon. And so we either need to define this very clearly as to what this looks like in practice and specify that here, or take it out. That's my strong thoughts on it. If people really want to keep this language in, it's fine. To me, it feels like a platitude, and that's my issue with it. Lynn.
I vote for taking it out, and that the goals become the lens by which we do everything. That's it.
Paul.
Yeah, I think that it should be here somewhere, and I'll tell you why. For instance, one of the things that we do when we're interviewing people, we put together a script, we ask our questions, and one of the questions I insist that we always have is, we have a question about structural racism, how it plays out in the town of Amherst. What's your definition of structural racism? Have you experienced it? And it's really just a threshold question for any candidate to sort of say, have you thought about this? Are you aware? Is it totally foreign to you? And it's a very revealing question to ask. We ask it in different ways because some people have really strong feelings or experiences. They have to realize that when they come to work for the town of Amherst, it's something that we deal with a lot, and we want people to be comfortable. A lot of folks really stumble over it, people who have not had any experience. And so I think that that's kind of revealing. It's not an elimination question, but it sure helps us understand and it also conveys to the candidates that's a value that we have. So we always like to have that kind of question in our interview teams for every position, especially police and fire and CRES.
Paul, how do you use it outside of just hiring, though?
Like,
because this is making all decisions, any decision.
Yeah.
So how does it come into play?
That's the most obvious one for me. I don't have really good answers for the others off the top of my head. I'd have to think.
So
Okay,
maybe this
sorry, I'm gonna go
language
next. Go ahead,
belongs,
George.
maybe this language belongs under the management in that area, but here perhaps not.
Personnel.
Yeah, under personnel, whatever. I hear what Paul's saying. I think that's great. That's good. I'm glad we do it and we should continue to do it. And I also hear him saying that somewhere this language should be in this document, if we can do it. But here's probably not the right place.
Counselor Ette?
I think the suggestion is a good one. I was also thinking it's possible to move it to objective. The town manager used the expression value. Value is not an action item. And so in that way, it could be some kind of objective that we have for the town and the town manager. That being said, I think there are a lot of different lenses that we are putting on, and I think after a while that can distort our vision, so if we can find a better way to express this same thought without using the word lens, I would be very glad.
I think I'm picturing, when you go to the eye doctor and they like all the things. So I think as we're talking, what I'm more curious about and what I would actually think might be more valuable, Councilor Arte raises a really good point about possibly moving this to be an objective, because there are some things that absolutely fall under this. For example, the review of public safety protocols. This is one where that to me is one way of using a racial and social justice lens in practice. But I think for me, what actually would be more interesting as a goal and an actionable one is to say, how are you using a racial and social justice lens? Tell us. Not just use it, but provide to the council an overview of the practices that you employ in different departments to take into account power, privilege, and the impact of race and identity in our world. That's a bit big, but that's what I'm trying to get at, is like maybe it would be more helpful for the council to say, what does this actually look like, versus just saying, go forth. Pat?
Well, I agree with what you were just saying, but I'm gonna need to leave the meeting.
Okay.
But my body's starting to shake, which is saying that you've sat too long.
Please
So,
rest. Pat,
Thank you for
if
this discussion, and I will be at the next meeting.
if you have other thoughts, feel free to email me. Thank you. So is there a different, is what I said resonate? I know Pat said she agreed, but I struggle with this because it's so ill-defined, and part of me is saying, well, why doesn't the town define it? How do you? But that's a really big undertaking, and I don't also want to assign a massive undertaking that is, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm going to suggest that, because we don't need to get bogged down, take
Yeah.
something like this, put a note off to the side, need to determine it's where it needs to be. Something like that. Otherwise, I mean, I think our goal is to try to get through this tonight.
Yeah. Everyone in my office is sick and I am refusing to get sick. So, Lynn, your hand is still up. Did you have something
Oh,
else?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
no.
nope, totally fine. Okay. We'll deal with that in a minute. Provide training regarding racial equity, rights, and other options to the town council, employees, and members of the public. This is something that I believe is happening. Do we want to keep it in here? Although I don't know that it was open, the town council part might be new. But well, like, we're allowed to go to the ones for the members of the public. So anyway, do we want to keep this in?
I think it
Or
belongs under personnel or something. I just don't think it
well,
belongs.
but it's members of the public
Yeah.
and town council. And I think it's in service of,
Yeah.
Health and safety of the
Yes,
residents of
yeah.
M.
I don't mind it being here. My question is, if this is our goals for the year and this is already happening to a satisfactory level, is it something that we should keep in the goals as a priority for the coming year?
My feeling is we have a DEI department. It's
Mhm.
very effective. It's very active. Again, reading Paul's self-evaluation. It's doing lots of these things on a regular basis. We're not telling them something they already don't know. We're not telling Paul something he doesn't already know. So why is it here?
And I think in that conversation, we need to be prepared to tell the council that things that are ongoing, that there's should be fewer things in our ultimate list, because we are not putting in everything that's ongoing intentionally.
Right.
We're saying keep on keeping on. So
And
I think
right.
yeah, if we take this out, that needs to be
Made
stated.
clear, right. And again, encourage people to, if they have not read, read carefully Paul's report, which details many of these things. And so, yeah, I would suggest that it be, both these items could be removed, or at least.
This one and the next one.
Yes, yes.
Have we done this one fully? Identify and propose revisions. I don't know that we've necessarily.
Well, yeah, then a
Well,
question becomes who, is this, we're talking to are we talking to the council here or to Paul?
Yeah, that's my issue with this one as well. This feels like a
Oh,
job for the council.
that's
We are
correct.
specific to public safety protocols, which is Paul,
That's right.
but this one feels like a council job to me. Paul,
Right.
would you unmuted for a second? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both of us have responsibilities in this area.
Okay. So
I
what
mean,
if we say work with the council to identify
Yeah,
and propose?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I think our DEI department would like to take this on.
Oh, happy to have their help.
Yeah.
I just don't want to like cut out our responsibility here either, you know, like if people want this done, they also could take a go at it.
That's why work with the council is an excellent
Okay.
addition. I think so. Although,
Develop,
Scott, you need to fix your typing there just a bit.
what are you talking about?
Identify.
No, it's a crossed out capital I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. It's,
Okay.
more
All right,
often
now
than
we
not,
get
a
into
lot
some
of-
details, and here I just
Yep.
need people to, and Paul to weigh in. I mean, this may be more than, but, yeah, anyway, there it is.
All right. George, what's the difference between a dedicated gym space and an exercise classroom?
That might be something that we could, let me see, develop a plan for addressing critical space and program needs in the senior center, which include a dedicated gym space. I think it should just be, in kitchen renovations. It's,
Should I say dedicated exercise space?
exercise space.
I would just leave it at senior center.
Paul, didn't we
Yeah,
allocate
no,
money
no.
to do the kitchen or
We
help
do,
with the
yeah,
kitchen?
so we have money set aside. It's actually going to require council action to put the money into play. We're ready to go.
Okay.
It's not going to be enough to do everything we want to do. That's the downside.
So maybe take out the particulars,
Yeah.
which will come up in discussion anyway, and you'll
Yeah.
talk about, and just make it, that we'd like you to address critical space and program
Yep.
needs. Thank you.
That's also fair because they might do an assessment of what are we've heard
Yeah.
these, but it
That
could
is
be helpful to
correct.
actually do an assessment.
That is correct.
Okay, next one. This, George, I think would be more of a financial financial guideline, right?
Not a
I struggle if
guideline.
it's a goal or not because
I think we have that.
We have it for 3 days a week, and,
No, well, we just hired
Yeah.
someone. Because the PVTA is funding a position and we're sharing it with the Deerfield.
Paul, you're already accomplishing your goals for
So
2025.
you
Maybe
already
if we're talking about the same thing, George, this is a position that goes from from Amherst to Greenfield a couple times a day.
No, well, my understanding is this is simply one that seniors access to take them to doctor's appointments and other kinds of things. It's, was originally a van that was gotten with the help of Mindy
Yeah,
Dom.
no, I got it. Yeah, I got it.
And the request is, and again, that's what it
Okay.
is.
So my question, George, is does it have to be the full-time driver for the ADA accessible van, or is it develop a plan so that seniors have access to 5-day-a-week service? This is really specific. If we know that this is the path forward, that's totally fine. But do we want to just say, make it so that they can get to appointments and such 5 days a week? Or do we want to specify how? And to be clear, I very much appreciate you putting this in because I think
No,
this is a
no,
good
it's a fair
discussion.
question, and again, it gets into the delicate area of dictating as opposed to requesting.
We can go to Lynn and come back if you want.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
what to say.
Lynn?
Yeah, I think you want to do something more like you were talking about, Anna, and don't be even specific about what it has to be, but to me, this goal is way too specific. This activity is way too specific.
And help me understand why that is the case. In other words, in
It's-
general, your thought is that when we get into action items, the more specific they get, the more they're.
I do
not
agree
a
with
good idea.
you.
Me or with Lynn?
You, George. I agree that we want more specific action items.
But this is too specific.
But no. It's one part of it that I'm finding too specific just because I don't know that we know that this is the right solution to the problem. So I think being specific about solve the problem, I do think we should say 5-day-a-week service, transportation service. I don't
Acceptable
know.
ADA accessible transportation.
ADA accessible 5-day-a-week
At the
transportation
senior
service.
center.
But I don't know if we should specify full-time driver. It might be able to be folded into
Understand.
that's
a
my
good
hang up
point.
with it.
Okay.
But
So,
we
yeah,
could say arrange for senior center ADA accessible transportation program to run 5 days a week.
That would be acceptable to me.
What did I just say? Arrange for senior center ADA accessible program that runs 5
5 day a week, 5 days
days.
a week.
Oh
And
my
take out
gosh.
service.
Yes. Where is service? Oh,
Take it
thank
out
you.
and keep 5 days a week. Yeah.
Gotcha. I
Fine.
couldn't find it for a second. All right.
Don't take away the strikeout. Or maybe my eyes are getting weak. That's not a strikeout. That's just,
There's no strikeout.
thank you.
Let me zoom. I can
Sorry.
zoom a little bit more though.
No, it's very good. Thank
Okay. I really like this one.
you. Good.
Update the Amherst Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Plan. This is one that I assume Paul would be worked with the new Transportation Commission if it comes in.
TAC could do it now.
Create and submit a complete streets tier 2 prioritization plan and a tier 3 construction application to Mass DOT.
Yeah, the point of these is that they, at least I've been led to believe that they would open up funding for us for certain kinds of infrastructure road projects. And at least the first one should be able to be done without too much difficulty, I think. And Paul can tell me, or someone will tell me quickly whether the second one is a huge finance and time drain. But both of them have been put forward as ways that we can actually access funds. In particular, they're thinking of what might happen at the East Common outside, at Fort River. So that's why they're in here.
Paul, any thoughts?
I don't know enough. I'd have to ask DPW what they think.
Okay.
All right.
I will do
I'll
that.
keep it in here and get some until we get
And
that
I will
stuff.
do the same. Thank you.
All right. We were through 2. George, you had, yeah, but now we only have 3, remember, well, 3 in this area. Okay, George, you had combined
Economic
housing and
vitality and
economic
housing.
vitality.
And I just called it housing.
No, I think you called it housing and economic vitality.
Fine. That's all right.
Do you like it or okay.
Whatever.
And then you had, so this is one where I do, let's have the conversation again of the objectives, excuse me, because I really like the specificity in the different objectives that we have. Oops, oh my God, every time. So as a note, these are all the things that we have in here. This is George's proposed mega objective. These were the 4 that we had before. Let me zoom out a touch.
Again, I mean, I'm just repeating what I've said, but essentially I think these areas are related. And I think that we need to focus on housing across the board, of which obviously affordable housing is a key element, but housing in general. And that involves certainly approaching the university and Amherst College. But those would be specific action items under the broad category of trying to provide greater diversity and supply of housing, both under traditional affordable and just housing in general. And that's key to our economic vitality. So I think these two are very closely related. And I think that the one statement is fine. And then in the objectives, we would specify things that we would like Paul and staff to do to promote our economic vitality and also to address the housing issues the town faces and not just say affordable housing.
George, I think that your statement does a really good job combining these 3, but
Yep.
it's missing this one. And this one has been really important about working closely with the colleges, the commerce and et cetera.
That appears later in the document, I think, under partnerships, and I think that's where this can go. And there might be some duplication here, which may offend us, but I don't think this should be a separate, what do we call it?
Objective.
Objective. It's, you know, if
Yeah.
you want to get, yeah, so that's my view.
I agree with
Let-
it. I think this is more like an activity,
What is?
just to work closely with the university, et cetera.
Oh, I don't think so at all, because I think the words "to work closely" look different to all 13 of us. Okay, so George, you would propose taking this, it's fine, taking this out of housing and economic vitality, moving it to partnerships.
Yes,
Um,
yes, at least
okay.
that's, and then maybe,
think-
and then, yeah, go ahead.
Initially, what we had done was we combined this up. It was initially its own goal area, was to work with local higher ed institutions, and we moved it up to say, work with them for this purpose, towards the purpose of economic vitality. Just context there, Paul.
Yeah, I think I would just focus on the colleges and the university. You have to mention Hampshire College. They
Oh my
have more
gosh, you
land.
guys.
They have more land, and that's the one thing they can actually offer us.
Mhm.
I don't think the chamber
Sorry,
did.
Paul. No offense meant.
Yeah, I think the chamber in a bit. I'm not sure exactly how they would contribute to this, but
They don't belong, yeah, I agree, yeah.
but I think that this is as an action or something. I think it's one that should be articulated out loud by the council.
So let me ask the question, wait, Paul, sorry, the last thing you said, you do want that, or you think it's important to articulate that out loud?
Yeah.
Okay. What action items these are not in order right now. These don't relate to an objective. So what action items would go under this? And we've talked about some years there may not be a specific action item. It might just be go forth and do it. And Paul, this is at you, but this is also to the rest of the committee as well.
Yeah. So
Um,
action items might be to identify specific parcels that can be developed, university and college owned land that has potential development possibilities or something like that. Like
mhm,
let's
that makes sense.
let's talk with them. What's valuable, what's available,
Mhm.
what we think is available, what they think is available. Two different things.
Okay, thank you. That was
But
helpful.
I think we get to the parcel specific topic.
So I would propose keeping this one as 2 objectives and having it, the first one be, well, okay. I guess fine. Yeah, we can move this down to community relations or whatever it's called. But that we'll still have 2 objectives in that category, because this is very different than the others. So,
Why are you wedded to this language? I mean, first of all, it's got this business about diverse neighborhoods.
oh, I'm
commercial
not wedded to this
enterprises,
language.
yeah.
I'm wedded
No.
to the concept. I'm not
No,
wedded to this
absolutely, it's
language.
got, you agreed 100%. And in this area, we could, as Paul suggested, and I think I have in my document, and he suggests parcel specific, but I have meet with UMass and Amherst College regarding housing, meet with, and we should add Hampshire. And we could add language to the effect of identifying parcel specific, meet with these entities and discuss the possible housing opportunities.
So you have this
Policies
under
handle.
your community and strategic relationships
Yeah,
as an
no,
action
actually,
item.
it's under housing and economic vitality.
Oh, you have it under community and strategic relationships too.
Well, yeah, that's because I didn't.
Sorry,
know
I
where
was
to
looking in
end
the
up,
wrong place.
so I didn't want to lose it. Paul has his hand up.
Go ahead, Paul. George, I'm sorry, I didn't see it under your. Go ahead, Paul.
No, he's got his hand down.
Okay, go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, no.
She's got her hand down.
Okay, I wasn't consistent in this part because I did not put in, I just put George's top part in. Let me put the action items in too really quick as we continued. Okay, so. Okay, my question is okay, that this is fine. Are we only asking for a meeting, or are there specifics like Paul said that we'd want to strive for, like identifying parcels for development or
You could
something
begin with
else?
that phrase. I mean, especially with
Okay.
housing, you could say, identify appropriate parcels or identify parcels.
Yeah,
And
the word
then,
appropriate is,
yeah,
oh my gosh, sorry. parcels for development.
It could either
Okay.
be to, yeah, it could be to identify, or you could, the approach could be, the town has identified, I assume Paul has in mind, they have some parcels in mind, and they go to the relevant parties and they say, what about X, what about Y? Another option is you just meet and, both sides throw out some, I don't know, it's not an
Mhm.
easy, it's a complicated conversation, it's gonna take a long time. But I think what the council is trying to say, sounds like Paul would like the council to say something like this, is please continue or please begin these conversations
Mhm.
and be as specific as possible related to parcels that could become housing in Amherst.
I was
That-
gonna say, we're saying possible housing development, right? Yeah,
This is, yeah, this has to
I
do
think
with,
that's gonna go over better.
yeah.
Georgia, I think that's good, and I think
And we
we
want
want
to
to add
include, want to include
Hampshire.
Hampshire College,
Yeah.
yes, yes, UMass, Hampshire, and Amherst College.
Do we, is that the order? I don't know. I went by size. Okay, so the other things that we don't have in this version, zoning bylaws. Okay, yeah, we talked about this being too up for interpretation, proposed revisions to zoning bylaws that increase and support economic development throughout town. Um, I say cut it unless we're able to be more specific. Does anyone else have thoughts on this?
There are, yeah, there are areas of town right now, for instance, East Village would be one, where the planning board has made some noises, and certainly staff has suggested that the places that the town could look to do some zoning changes to promote greater density in housing. They've already done that at U Drive, and that's in process. But my thought was it wouldn't be inappropriate, if 7 of us at least agree, to ask the manager to continue to encourage his planning department to pursue that line of thinking, to look for areas in Amherst, like for instance, East Village. Pomeroy Village Center might be another, where with appropriate zoning changes, greater density of housing could be created and economic vitality could be stimulated.
So do we want to say in 2025, we want you to focus on the village centers more?
I think
Not
what-
those exact words,
we're
but like,
talking
do we
about
want to
zoning.
specify?
We're basically saying we'd like, I mean, I would be saying something to the effect that I would like Paul to instruct the planning department to continue and through them, the
Mhm.
planning board to look at places like East Village, Pomeroy Village Center. There are a couple of others that could, but anyway,
Yeah,
with the idea
I
of
would-
zoning reform.
yeah.
Paul?
I would not include village centers because it could be,
Okay,
I think we've talked about Belchertown Road as one place that really.
Right.
And you drive is not a village center, so yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah, that's fair. Okay.
So look for areas
Um,
in town that would be appropriate for, zoning. Again, I don't know what the term would be, but, we're basically talking about creating greater housing density, and economic, mixed use development.
do we want, how, would you like to specify that?
I thought I
Or do you
had
want to
it.
leave this as, no, seriously, like, do you want to
Yeah.
specify that or do you want to leave this as is?
Um,
Because,
But don't you want to include housing?
yes.
oh yeah, I definitely do. Thank you. I guess. George, I'm gonna let you mull that because I've
Thank
found a
you.
couple other things that I want to come back to here. Counselor Arte, and then I want to come back because we've talked about deleting some of these up here. So Counselor Arte?
I was wondering if we removed the final bullet point from the work closely with
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
ask that because what other option do we have? I'm not being facetious. What would it look like if we didn't work closely with the bid?
I agree, and I think it's also in keeping with our other practice of saying if something is an ongoing practice, we don't want to necessarily keep it in here. I had a couple thoughts on these first two. So first was complete implementation of the rental registration bylaw. Is this the right wording? Is that
Mhm.
okay, great. This though, continue to explore we've explored this. We've done the exploration. There's bulldozers. So can we rephrase, well, I don't know. Maybe they're front end loaders, but should we specify continue the establishment? Or is there a specific goal we want them to get to by the end of the year? That doesn't always feel like it's completely in our control, so I struggle with that one. But I continue to prioritize the establishment would be
The
a
phrase I have
possible.
is continue to work towards the establishment.
I
like
copied
that.
this from your thing.
No, well, I think what happened is that I went back through this.
Oh, okay.
And so that's not your, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying.
No, no, no. I was
Diane,
like, I swear I did it
no,
right.
I reread this and I thought that's not right. So
Okay.
continue to work towards the establishment of your own. So I just want to, Paul's made great strides. He's done an enormous amount. And I think the council should just say, we'd like you to continue. We know there's going to be a huge funding
Completely
challenge,
agree.
but
Absolutely.
we don't want you to stop.
Yep. Now this one,
Yeah.
I don't like this one because I
Please take
don't
it.
feel that it's actionable. I don't know what the town manager would do short of trying to pass, which would be the council, trying to pass a home rule petition for rent control. I don't see what the measure is here.
So measure has a
Unless
technical meaning, is that correct? It's, in other words, it refers to what? It's not just, it's
a
not just
bylaw
another
or a
word for,
regulation,
right,
something official the council votes on.
right,
But
okay.
really though, this is like, we're talking about incentivizing or things that might have significant budgetary implications. So until we know, unless we're saying, Paul, come with I guess that's what this is kind of saying, but I don't know, Paul, is this a possible thing to ask?
I don't know what we'd come up with. I mean, it would be certainly
Yeah.
a question to pose to our staff.
But if we don't even know what it's saying, why do we have it in here? That's crazy. I mean, if
I
somebody can
wanted to put
explain what it
in,
is, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so for me, I wanted to put in develop a first time home buyer down payment assistance program run through the town. That for me was a specific thing that we might be able to do that
So
increases
why don't you put it in?
the option.
Put it in.
But, I mean, I will, but
Good.
it has budgetary implications. It's
Right.
something the council's going to have
I
to
know.
debate and discuss. There are options for how to run it, but like that. All right.
Just put it in.
So propose a process for uh
Good.
just saying propose it. I'm not saying make it happen. We'll
No, yeah, put it out there.
see what people think. And then this one is the last thing that this was a holdover from before. Review and revise town regulations to reduce barriers to opening and operating business in Amherst. Paul,
So
you're
this-
muted.
Yeah,
I would suggest you add after regulations and put the words and practices.
I like it more than, to be honest. I like this now. I didn't like it before, but now I like it. George?
again, this is why I actually liked the one that has been stricken, which is simply I know these happen on a regular basis, and what the council is simply saying to Paul and to staff is to continue having regular conversations with the bid and the chamber about these issues, and about other issues related to economic vitality. So your point, I guess, and points of others is they already do this, so we don't need to mention it again. And so fine. But I think this is still an area of real concern to the business community. And I would just like to encourage the conversation to continue, not only about economic development in general, but also about some of the challenges that our businesses face in dealing with our procedures, which,
Yeah.
I still hear it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, especially with the new planning director coming on board, having this in the goals is an important thing to have in.
Paul, is it a given with this that you would work with the chamber in the bid, or do you think that it would be beneficial
Yeah,
to
but
specify it?
but with other people too. I mean, we
E-
do
Sure.
with Kohl's and places like that too.
Okay. Because George, I think your point is very well taken that we want the town to work with the chamber in the bid on things like this. I don't think a goal of meet regularly with the chamber in the bid necessarily equates to this, right? I think that, again, Paul, I do this very much with not you in my head, but I think about there could be someone who just says, I check the box, I meet with them weekly. They don't talk about challenges to opening a business. Ideally, they do, but that's why that specificity is important. So I think that your point, George, is well taken, and I don't know if that's kind of why I was asking. Is this a given, or do we need to be more specific that this should be done, the review should be done in conjunction with other entities?
Well, staff is taking a number of steps. It's in Paul's report, and they're all encouraging. And maybe for the moment, we just need to see how things play out. But there are a whole series of things that were done to try and address some of these issues. And I guess maybe I don't know what to say. I mean, we're waiting to see. I mean, it's going to take time, and so I don't know. I don't know how my colleagues feel. Maybe they just want to, if this continues to be a problem, then we can bring it back in. But I do want to acknowledge that Paul and staff have taken a number of steps to address some of the issues that are related here, involving barriers to opening and operating a business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just repeating it seems not appropriate because they have in fact taken steps. Staff has done things, and so I don't want to repeat it. I think they have revised and reviewed regulations and practices I think that has been done. At least that's what Paul had put in his report, and I think it's true. So I don't want to repeat this. I just want to have them continue to meet and as they do, meet and talk with the business community about these issues and keep the lines of communication open. And again, maybe that's just a given. We don't need to do it. But I'd like to stake this box out. I don't, we shouldn't be repeating something if it's already been done.
I think that's the question. Has this been done? Counselor Ette?
That indeed is the question. And I think it can't ever really be done. There's always more that could be done. And going back to what was stricken, the other organizations that don't get mentioned that have a role to play. I think of it almost like the award ceremony where you mention a few names when you win an award and then someone else says, but I contributed. And so just leaving it to the fact that we can always have liaisons with these different groups. We already do that. We can do more of that. I think that is sufficient and should stay.
I also think it's a fair question. Sorry, my middle line. I think it's a fair question of if we're saying review and revise, that shouldn't happen every single year, right? If we are truly meaning go through your policies and practices and revise them, that's an every couple year thing, right? But we expect that it happened that year. I think that's better practice too. And so if this year we're saying look at public safety protocols this year and really focus there, next year we say something else. I think that's fair to take this out, to George's point for this year and say this is not where we want to focus intensively this year. George, your hand?
So a new health inspector has been appointed. There are new procedures to facilitate clarity, efficiency, and predictability of inspections and licensing. They've expanded administrative approval process to expedite these kinds of things. And in response to DEI, they are partnering with the bid in the chamber to host workshops for new businesses and institute a process to facilitate the inspection process, et cetera, et cetera. So in Paul's report, a whole series of actions have been taken to address this. And unless the council is asking him to do more in this area, and they have some specific ideas as to what he's supposed to do, I don't see how repeating this is going to be helpful to Paul or to his staff.
Okay,
So I would say it comes out.
look at that. Mandy had two other ones. Sorry, I know we're getting a little bit jumbly here. Let me see if I can delete a row without everything. I'm not going to risk it. Sorry. We are taking this out, right? Because we've decided we like this
Right.
objective, just
Right.
confirming before I do it.
Do we, sorry to interrupt, as set forth in the council's comprehensive housing plan, is that necessary?
You have it in here.
I have it italicized because I wanted to remind myself, I want to remind myself that
Okay.
this is really, I'm not trying to keep this as short as possible. Is this truly informative, and necessary? I don't know. It's a question. I don't know.
I believe it is.
I
That's
think so
just-
too,
Just the
to
way
be
the carp
Fine.
is.
That's fine. Then take out the
Um,
italics and it
The
stays.
only,
as is.
the only edit, George, I would want to add affordable and attainable to your
Okay. I have
statement,
no
if that's
problem with that.
okay.
I have no
Okay, thank
problem with
you.
that.
Okay, then I'm gonna delete this so it's not confusing me later and
You
delete
can take out
this.
the italics if you like, if you have a moment.
Okay.
Though I wonder
Um,
how many have actually read the entirety of the council's
I
comprehensive.
actually have, it's been a minute, but I
I
did
don't
read the
believe
whole
you.
darn thing. I did. It was in
Did you write it?
2019.
Maybe you were involved in writing
I
it.
was not involved in writing it. I
Okay,
was building a
alright.
dog park at the time, George.
Alright.
Okay, so really important stuff. Mandy had added 2 extra ones here. I wanted to just make sure that folks had seen. So proposed changes to the ADU zoning regulations to bring them into compliance with state law, and proposed revisions to the zoning bylaws that would reduce the cost of developing, permitting, and building 2 to 6 units of housing on parcels in Amherst. I'm gonna go with this first one. Feels like an easy win. Yes, we have to do this, so we should put this in here. I would agree with that. However, this one is going to be a really fun discussion at council. So
Yeah.
on the one hand, we can keep this in here because a counselor proposed it and it should go to council to be discussed.
Yeah.
That's kind of my stance on it, but I'd like this committee to discuss if how it's framed here makes sense. Not logically, of course, logically it makes sense. Mandy logically makes sense, but is this what we've been going for in terms of actionable, etc.? Lynn.
Again, I just feel like it's too specific. It doesn't mean that it's not a way of getting to part of the goal or the goal, but it's like, is this the only thing?
Well, it's a thing, Lynn. I know it's the only thing.
Or
I mean,
is it a
it's
thing?
one
Is
way
it-
to get there.
Yeah.
And short of just saying something very generic and anodyne about, gee, try to create some more affordable housing, which, that doesn't mean anything. This is a specific proposal that may die on the vine for all we know, but it's at least something that the council can sink its teeth into.
I think Mandy also is doing our work for us because what we wrote as a committee in the last meeting, when we talked about proposed revisions to zoning bylaws that increase and support economic and housing development throughout the town, we said we need to be more specific.
Mm.
And so I think Mandy was more specific. So I'm fine leaving this here. It is specific, and I think that's what the council needs to discuss. But otherwise, we're saying to Paul, propose something, it might get shot down. So we need to just, yeah, sorry. Lynn?
I think the thing that catches me up is when you start saying 2 to 6 units of housing, blah, blah, blah. Just propose revisions to the zoning bylaws that would reduce the cost of developing, permitting, and building housing.
I
on
think, Lynn,
parcels.
she's thinking of
But-
duplexes, triplexes.
Yeah.
and
Oh, I
sort of-
understand
yeah.
that,
So that's what, yeah.
but I
It's
just.
not about single
mean-
family or two family, and it's not about large multiplexes,
Right.
multi-family. It's about
Taking out
these-
units,
Right.
taking out the unit number changes the meaning of the sentence completely. And I think that's the issue, right? Is proposed revisions to the zoning bylaws that reduce the cost of developing, permitting, and building housing is not the same as addressing missing middle housing development potential.
I would leave the increased middle, the whole thing of addressing middle housing in. Maybe it's, forget it. It doesn't matter.
I kind of think we should have the debate at the council level instead of having something vague and then having it spin around in CRC for 18 months again.
Well, Mandy will
let's
leap
deb-
in immediately and say, what happened to my language?
No, she
Which
gets, I
she
think she
should.
understands. We're
I
just-
would too. I would say, what happened to my language? Right.
Fair, okay. Counselor Arte?
I think Lynn's position is a fair one, which is that what we're looking at are revisions to the zoning bylaws in ways that would actually increase the potential for the missing middle. And so if that's the case, we don't need to constrict the options that are available. And so this is one, but it doesn't have to be the only one. And so by taking it out, that leaves room for the discussion, robust, however it may be, when we decide to have it. But putting it in here means that we'll be discussing this one thing,
Mhm.
and that would exclude every other thing that could possibly be discussed.
Here's my issue with this. We know that this issue is very political in the town of Amherst, right? How many housing units you have on a lot is super political. And we know that this is a legitimate strategy, a main legitimate strategy to increasing missing middle housing development potential. If we do not include this level of specificity, and I'm inclined to agree with George that I think Mandy put this in here and I want to respect that too. But if we do not include this level of specificity, we're essentially punting that political problem over to our town staff and saying, you have to pitch something that we know is going to be controversial at council. I think that if this is what we're looking for, I don't know. I guess if this is what counselors want to see done, try to get it in the goals. And if 7 people vote for it, 7 people vote for it. Counselor Ate?
Would it be any less controversial because we've put in the 2 to 6 units?
No.
It's
Wait, what do you mean? Like, would it be less controversial if we said,
yeah, you had mentioned that we would be punting to town staff, and I'm saying just the discussion, regardless of what else we put into this text, already makes it political.
but if we, oh, sorry.
I don't know if keeping it in helps. If we really want to have this conversation, we will find a way to have it in any case.
My point was if we just say propose zoning bylaws that address missing middle, we're asking town staff to come up with a solution that is gonna anger one part of the council or another. Whereas if we say to town staff, we want you to write this policy that does this thing, then we're kind of taking away their choice in that, right? Like we're saying this is the strategy we want you to pursue versus find us a strategy, because it's the strategy that's going to be the big debate. So I don't know. I don't know that this will get through council. I don't have a problem with it being in here.
Remember,
George?
putting something in here doesn't mean we approve of it. There are things in here that I probably will not approve of. It's just, these are things that, we feel that the council should look at and make a
Yeah.
decision on. And this is one of them. This doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you personally would vote for this. You would perhaps in the discussion either vote against it or try to amend it.
Mhm.
So I don't think we should get too much into the.
All
as
right.
long
I'm
as-
inclined to agree but if there's strong objection, I'm happy to hear it. I think we should keep it in here because I did specifically say to counselors, send me action items you want included. Are we ready to move on? Maybe I'm keeping an eye on time. Okay. So there's a couple things that were put in under racial justice that we haven't discussed yet. And so I wanted to just touch on those. So Mandy had added in an objective, incorporate input from BIPOC, LGBTQ plus and other marginalized communities and appropriate town committees when reviewing and revising policies and regulations, as an objective. And one of the action items was create and appoint an advisory council similar to the Northampton Youth Advisory Council, which I think is a really interesting idea. So let's talk about the objective first. As a reminder, let me just move this. Just put it all up, sorry. No, that place, yeah. All right, so Counselor Ate?
I'm not sure about the objective, insofar as I think from the town manager's point of view, or from the town, it would already say that this is being done. So I don't know about the objective, that is to incorporate input from BIPOC and other communities. With regard to the advisory council, I think I could say that there is already a move in that direction, or at least some of those ideas are already being floated. And so I think that is something that definitely could be in the action item.
Paul, do you have any thoughts on this one? I will say, Counselor Ate, I don't have as much of an objection to things being kind of ongoing in the objective area as I do in the action area, right? So for me, objectives kind of probably are ongoing. This is a bit specific for an
Yes.
objective, but I'll defer to everybody else.
So what would this look like? How would I know I did this right?
So this is the broad area. What this is saying is that to work towards that objective this year, you would create and appoint an advisory council.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're saying, right? It's like these are the actions we're asking this year to work towards this objective. Counselor Ate?
But what I read is actually that the objective and the action items are quite different, because one is more like a youth advisory council and the other is different groups. I didn't actually connect one to the other. Is
It
there some
depends on
link?
yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Counselor Ryan? I do see what you're saying, Counselor Ate. I don't have a solution for you yet, but I'm gonna think on it.
This really sticks out like a sore thumb compared to all the other objective categories. And it cries out for an explanation or some kind of rationale. It seems if there are particular issues related to the health and safety, or issues of social justice related to these communities, they should be addressed in specific objectives in that third column. Because our commitment is to the health and safety and equity and justice of all our citizens. And so if there's something specific that people have in mind, then it should be in the objective column. I don't think this language belongs here.
So what I'm gonna do for now is I'm gonna keep the create and appoint to action items because that is a very specific action item. Oh no.
Yep.
And then I will
I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who has trouble with this,
you're not.
especially when someone far younger than I feel like, okay, I'm not completely.
It's just gonna stay that way. We've hit past 8 o'clock. It's just staying the way it goes.
Fine.
Just let me do what I want to do. Okay. All right. This is, to be honest with you, if our objectives had stayed the way that they were going, which we all know I liked more, but it's fine. Democracy. This wouldn't be that far from an objective. Our objectives have broadened significantly. And so I do agree that this is not in keeping with the other objectives. What I would say is that if this was a concern that a counselor had, this could be reframed to be, outline specifically how the town manager takes input from blah, blah, like different communities or whatever it is. I don't necessarily feel the need to do that right now because I think that this counselor's goal was this specific action item. Counselor Ryan?
So yes, if this could be turned in, if you see this as this sentence as being captured by the action item that currently is there, create and appoint an advisory council. If not, then another action item that you feel would capture this the best would be appropriate. I'm gonna expose my ignorance here. I'm not aware of the Northampton Youth Advisory Council. Could someone very briefly help me understand what it is and what it does?
They just reached out to us recently because I don't know full specifics. I can send you some information, but they did just reach out to I don't know who, but I got an email from them asking us if we'd be interested in adding to a video they're making to send to this governor's office regarding Chapter 70 funding. So I think that they work closely with the Northampton City Council or the mayor. I'm not sure which one. And
Yeah, they're not associated particularly with BIPOC or LGBTQ plus.
theirs, I do
community.
not believe are specific.
it's a
That is
youth
a
council.
broad youth committee.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Counselor Ate?
That exactly was what I was pointing to in terms of the connection, one
right.
and the other. But in also looking at this language, to incorporate implies a stronger connection than necessary. And this is something we already run into with some of the committees that exist in town. That is, at what point does advice become some kind of mandate? And so I think it's slippery language. We can change the language, or
Let's take it out. I'm not seeing any strong voices for keeping it, and I think that we've put in some interesting language here. I think that if we choose to make this into an action item later at the council, we can. Any objections to continuing on? Okay, we've got all of the, nope, not deleting that. That's what we just did. Okay. Hey, guess what? We got through our 3. Paul, any thoughts so far before we get into administration and leadership?
No, I think you're making good progress, I think.
Thanks.
He's
No, it's good.
a kind soul.
He's a kind soul. Paul, I'm gonna put a new goal for you is be meaner to the council.
Yeah,
All right, so George, did you do?
absolutely.
Of course you did.
Of course I
You're
did.
killing me, man. All right.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Effectively and appropriately administer the operations and finances of town pursuant to Home Rule Charter, ensure the town's strong financial and fiscal health, and effectively develop, supervise, and manage the town's workforce. Administration and leadership. 1 goal and 1 objective.
It was always 1 goal in my defense.
That's correct.
No,
actually, anyway, right. Good.
We had already combined.
And it's a suggestion, obviously, yeah, but that's what I did. And then in the objectives are a series of items that relate to those not right in some sense. And it looks like some excellent, some suggestions here from you and from Andy, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on sort of the direction that, again, the direction the committee wants to go. I prefer the objectives to be a bit more specific because I think it helps us to clarify our action items. Otherwise it feels hodgepodgey, but
I think if we're going to combine administration and leadership, we should
Yep.
have a sentence that articulates what that means, and that's what this sentence does.
Where did it go? Yeah.
And I don't see how breaking it out is really all that helpful. They're all there. And then under the action items are elements that highlight certain aspects of it, and they don't have to have a one-to-one correspondence because there may be areas of administration and leadership where we don't have any particular action items for Paul. Maybe they'll all be in one area, but I don't think it's yeah, again, just for the sake of clarity and yeah, anyway, it's there.
So we've lost the only thing that's missing from the the objectives that we had before was foster a proactive anti-racist culture throughout all town departments.
And I think that would be probably appropriate if we think it's appropriate under an action item.
Mhm.
I disagree because again, that's such a broad area, that I think that there needs to be, that's not actionable, right? Like there's too many ways that actions could be taken that aren't what people wanted, right? What different people on the council wanted. I think it's too up for interpretation. So, and I say that because we went for hours on this topic in past meetings. I think last year around the goals, it was offering training. Is it offering, like, what does it look like? And people had very specific expectations. And I think that if people have specific expectations, we can't leave a broad area. No, what I mean is like it's not fair to say a broad goal, and if someone has something specific in mind, because the town manager might do it another way. Sorry, my dog came up to me, started snorting, and distracted me a little bit. But I think that developing an anti-racist culture is such a massive concept that it's much more of an objective than an action item. There are action items you take towards developing that culture, but developing a culture in and of itself is not an action item. I mean, George, what would achieving that look like to you?
What would achieving what look like to me?
If you're saying the action item is foster a proactive anti-racist culture throughout all departments,
I
what
think
does
you'd have to give
completion of that goal?
specific, you'd have to give specific statements as to what you mean by that. I mean, it seems like one of these, wonderful broad statements that doesn't really mean anything unless you have something specific in mind, like a set of trainings or I mean, we have a whole host of things earlier that
That's
address training and bylaws, et cetera. Now we have, so again, I would just ask, what does this mean in concrete?
I
And
think
if you
that is
say we're creating a culture, yeah.
George, I get you. I think we're saying the same thing, right? Is my point is, as written, I cannot in good conscience put it as an action item because it's not actionable.
Well, I'm not encouraging you
And
to
so
put it as an action item.
I know, but I will say that I do think that it's helpful to be in here as part of the objective, because I think that we should have that conversation at the council level of, if it's an objective, what is the council expecting gets done towards that? Lynn?
To me, it goes under the actions, and it includes things like through training and mentoring or whatever we want to say. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Okay.
So-
Counselor Ate, oh, go ahead, Paul.
So I think if you want to get a very specific thing, you could say something like incorporate anti-racism concepts on all or onboarding processes for new employees. That's how you
Okay.
might be a way to begin.
As an action item,
As an
illustrating
action
or
item.
Action
realizing
item, yeah.
that goal.
Yep.
But
As-
go ahead. Sorry.
But it's nowhere in the objective, so it feels a little out of the blue. That's all I'm saying. I think that this is going to be a big topic of conversation, just as a precursor. I would encourage us to figure out how to put that framing into the objective. You don't have to, but that would be what I encourage.
So would that be under administration and leadership? Would it be
Yes,
under?
because it's specific to town employees and workplace culture. What is this foster?
Good, that this is the place it should be. That is correct.
Yeah. So, incorporation of. So rather than fine. Can we, I mean, you don't want to just add another comma that says foster?
Well, you could, it's basically, as you said, it
Okay.
has to do with managing the workforce, supervising and managing the workforce. It doesn't have to do with operations and finances. It doesn't really have to do with financial and physical health. It has to do with how Paul and his staff develop and supervise and manage their workforce. And so you could have something there to the effect of, effectively develop, supervise, and manage the town's workforce um, in light of our commitment to, or, but yes, you could add something there. I'm not sure it has to be a comma, but it could be, and I forget now what the phrase is that you're trying to place in here, but that's where it would go. It'd go at the end here, and maybe if you just write, just write the.
If we have
Yeah.
it there, I think we could just say
that.
incorporate
So,
anti-racism.
comma. Yeah,
Oh, sorry, you skipped for a second, George. What'd you say?
keep going.
I think we could. Use. Why to get at that. Sorry, hang on one second. Okay.
So maybe
Sorry.
just take the including out and just have a comma
Okay.
is what I would suggest. Fostering a proactive anti-racist culture throughout town departments.
Okay.
That I think you could do.
Okay. All right, let me. All right, let's talk through the action items here. You had maintained and
The
continue
first
to
one,
improve.
yeah.
I think we had, was that what we had before? Can't remember.
I think it's taken from the original document.
Yeah.
It
I'm not
is.
sure. I'm not sure what it really says to Paul that's informative.
What we had changed,
Yeah.
I think the reason why we had moved this eventually to be an objective was because it was really broad. So initially in the objectives, we had maintain essential municipal services and improve the delivery of services to residents and businesses. And then we were going to discuss whether there was a specific action item. I think that's why that was I liked
So,
that
yeah.
objective. So I think but I don't know specifically what the actionable item would
So,
be.
yeah, if we don't know anything specifically actionable, why are we putting it in here? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
tell Paul a damn thing. I mean, he does
Mhm.
this every
It's
day.
fair.
If there's something specific that we want him to focus on related to delivery of municipal services, or if we want him to improve something specifically, we should mention it here. Otherwise, I don't see the point of this.
Lynn?
I can go either way on this, but I do think that this is where in, for instance, in Paul's annual performance evaluation to us, he talked about the various things that we've done to improve local government, with more online services,
Right,
et cetera.
right.
So to me, that's what that means. And it's an opportunity to talk about that ongoing thing.
What I want to avoid is, again, people for some reason expecting Paul to do something that
Yeah.
the council never charged him with, and then being mad that he didn't do it. And so Lynn, I get your point, and I want Paul to be able to talk about that. But where I think we slip up is if people say, yes, but he didn't do this one thing that I specifically wanted him to do, therefore. And I know I'm getting back to the evaluation again, but that I think actually does pertain to the goals, right? If people are expecting something to change
So
that hasn't been discussed.
is there something that the five of us feel that needs to be improved or added or changed? I can't
Or
think.
Paul, is there something you're planning on focusing on?
So I think the thing that would resonate with the council is being more responsive to pothole complaints. Something like that. If you want to get really specific.
Yeah, and I think that's,
It would
right.
set well with my district.
No, I think it's
Tell your district to, just slow down.
actually, maybe what it should be is that the council would agree that we should regularly.
George, I swear, if you're gonna say something, I'm gonna get mad at.
That's all right. It's okay. That we should, every year, we should commit to making a substantial contribution to roads and sidewalks.
And the schools, yeah.
No, the schools is something else. That's a different issue. It's not here.
Oh,
We
I'm
can
going to
talk
propose
about
a
it if you
whole
want,
new
but right
goal
now we're
area,
talking about,
whole new goal area of schools. Oh my
I
God, I
don't want
can't.
potholes in here. I'm sorry. I appreciate
No?
Paul's comment, but I
Okay.
don't want
All right.
potholes in here. It should be roads and sidewalks or something like that, or just leave it out.
Let's just leave it. We'll just leave it. Okay.
Okay.
Review the
I'll put it in.
organizational
I'll make a
structure.
motion to put it in, I think. All right, this is, yeah, uh, this is rooted, I don't know how much detail we want to get into because it's pretty vague as it's stated here. I don't know if anyone has a sense of what this is about. Some of us have a feeling that the amount of demands that are made on the town manager
Mhm.
are so great that there are things that he simply cannot deal with because he lacks sufficient staff support. And I think he's probably said on more than one occasion that he's fine. But I personally don't believe that. And I think that I would like us to, I'd like the manager or someone to look at our organizational structure and the distribution of responsibilities. And just, yeah, that's,
No, I agree.
yeah, but I don't think this phrases it right, but, and I'm not sure that Paul would be very sympathetic to it, but my feeling is that we need to look at the very top level and the kinds of demands we're making on our chief executive and whether we have sufficient people there for him to actually do all the things he's asked to do. That's, I guess, what's behind this.
I like it. I think it's good.
But do you think it says that?
I do think it says that. My only issue with it, George, was are
Yeah.
we asking the town manager to just review it himself and kind of provide a
Yeah,
self-reflection?
that's the
Or is it
problem.
like
We're
that would be
asking him-
my
yeah,
that
I
would
don't-
be
I
my
don't-
concern.
Yeah, maybe this is something for the council as something it needs to do, and it's really not something we can reasonably ask Paul to do.
Yeah,
That may be the issue.
Paul and Lynn.
So I think this is the type of thing, if you want to see this, it might be if there's a consultant that's needed, you'd see a capital request for a consultant.
A
Mhm.
capital request would be that kind of approach rather than,
Yeah.
yeah, we're,
Like an
yeah.
organizational consultant. Yeah, that makes sense.
Did-
Okay.
Lynn?
That's all I was gonna say.
Okay.
Could
I'm
you put
gonna-
a footnote there so I don't forget it? I won't forget.
May require a consultant.
So
Okay.
that should come out. That should come out.
All right, fine. I'll add it as a
No,
Okay, I got it.
We'll certainly remember.
we just did a pay scale study last year.
Yeah,
and-
that is not about this. This is about, and again, it's just, I'm worried, I'm thinking about or concerned about what we pay what we pay our unionized employees, and our competitiveness with neighboring towns. And, you know, I understand that these are union contracts and are negotiated, but I assume that there are pay scales that
Mhm.
apply. And I guess I hear stories of people going off to other neighboring towns where they can make better pay doing the same job with less stress. Now, maybe that's just the usual stories everybody tells, but I have absolutely no idea how we stand with relative to other towns in the region in terms of paying people like DPW and conservation or whatever. Just the folks who do the everyday work of town who are unionized. Not fire, not police so much, but the other staff. And that's what this is supposed to be trying to state. I know we did a study about non-union employees, and that's been done. And this is about the other employees. And are we doing our pay scales, our pay levels enough to make us competitive? And I just would like to know. And maybe again, that's something I can get an answer to elsewhere, but that's why that's here.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, so most of the employees that you're talking about are unionized employees.
Exactly.
The way they come, we can't pay them more than what the union contract says. That's illegal.
Right.
If the union doesn't agree to increase these wages, which they often don't, because there's the dynamics within a union are different.
Right.
And I think that's, increasing pay is really not a council prerogative. There's
Right.
some employees, unionized and not, have feel empowered to contact the council directly and to plead their case,
Right.
which
Right.
creates a different dynamic that's going on,
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you for
Uh,
clarifying.
Well,
Athena?
again,
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
yeah, so for those of us who worry that this is happening, at
Athena
least
has her
some,
hand up.
sorry.
I know. I was
Let me
letting George
finish my
finish.
thought and then Athena can speak.
As the chair, I will tell you, George, finish your thought, and then I'll call on Athena.
Thank you.
Pull it together,
So,
folks.
thank you. So that's a concern I have. And again, this might not be the way to get an answer to it, but I'm concerned about our competitiveness among certain parts of our workforce and where we stand with vis-a-vis other towns.
Athena?
Hi, thanks. We're concerned about our competitiveness too. And I think what the conversations that Paul and I have had about strategic planning for our workforce are more about our employee development and retention and some plans in that way. So there's only so much we can do financially, but I think we're exploring other options to retain and develop employees and make Amherst an attractive and happy place to work for our current and future employees.
So I appreciate Athena saying this. It's what Athena said happens to also launch itself squarely into what I do for work. And I think that point is really well taken of what is within our sphere of control. And Mandy had put in something really excellent down here, which is talking about continuing education and leadership training, as well as one other opportunity that I think we could include in that statement is supervisory and management training for folks who supervise others. So we know salary goes so far and is only so controllable, but a big reason people leave jobs is salary, but it's also supervision, right? And so I think that if we could build in other elements that could support and kind of give Paul the go ahead to say we really want you to focus on this on some things this year, as it pertains to other opportunities for staff that might support that retention and recruitment. I think this would be a good place to put those. But George, I don't know that this is going to get at what. Or maybe it is. Maybe it is like
No,
through,
no,
but take out pay
no.
scale competitiveness. Maybe this is because I think this ensuring all town staff are offered and have access to continuing ed and leadership training, unless there's a structure and a system set up already for them to do that, that's a huge lift. But I think that what we could say is, and I guess this is kind of a question for Athena and Paul, you're talking about strategic workforce development. Is it a matter of we want you to put really good time in this year towards creating that strategic plan for workforce development, towards creating and learning the structure for learning opportunities for staff? Does that already exist, or would a good goal be ensure that this exists, or would a good goal be plan for this to exist to help address or help make town of Amherst a great place to work?
So it exists to a certain degree, and it's based on opportunities available that we can take advantage of. The MMA's developed a lot more leadership programs and things like that. I would hesitate to say ensure all town staff are offered because it's impossible. Like the senior center is going to be closed tomorrow because our director's at, for a lot of different reasons, but she's in a 26-week training program. So that's one of the reasons. So I think we're on board on this, trying to develop opportunities for people to get leadership training and supervisory training. It's not cheap. That's the only thing.
Mhm. Athena?
I'm going to say strategic again, because what we've talked about, and Paul, I hope you'll correct me if I'm misstating our conversations, but is to be really deliberate about where we're pointing those efforts in terms of planning for the future, where we're seeing folks getting ready to retire and looking at developing our bench strength and so on. So we want to be really targeted about looking at the possibilities for the employees who we know see a future in the town and working with them to make sure that they are supported and developed. And that's just part of the recruitment, retention, and development plan that we're working on. But I think saying everybody is unachievable, and
Yeah.
what we're trying to do is be strategic and mindful about where we're going and plan for the future, just like we do for capital. Looking at our workforce as a town resource and planning ahead for that, just like we do financially.
So this is a strategy or a initiative that's coming from within, which is great. And it doesn't sound like I certainly have anything better to offer. My focus was clear, I think, from the way I worded this, had to do with simply with pay. And I'm being told that that's really either outside of our area or and other things are being done. And I accept that, I understand that. And it's coming from within. So I don't see any point in having this. Actually, the first 3 bullet points probably should be taken out. Because the first one, I think we agreed, doesn't really say anything, unless we want to get specific, and we don't. The second one is clearly something that the council needs to ponder, and if it's serious about it, it has its own way of acting on that. It has nothing to do with Paul or his goals. And the third one is an in-house operation that is being pursued by staff and by Paul. And I don't know anything about it other than what I'm being told. And so that shouldn't be here either. Which is fine by me.
disagree.
Yeah, you think the third one should be here?
I think all 3 should be. Go
I
ahead,
do
Len.
too.
The first one doesn't mean anything.
But
Doesn't mean
We
a
just
thing.
talked about it.
it means stuff. And in addition to that, remember, this is an area in which, for very good reasons, we have less knowledge about because it's under the management
Right.
of the town manager. And so if the town manager and his staff, in this case Athena, are telling us some things to put in here, I think that's what we need to be listening to.
Thank you, Councilor Ette.
If we are looking for things to take out, I was thinking the final bullet point, ensure that
100%.
fully utilize.
Yeah.
I
We've,
don't
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to just do it without talking about it first. Yeah.
All right,
Um, George,
okay.
I do want to keep I do want to keep these because I think this is, again, if we think about this as the guiding document for how we want the town manager to prioritize his and his staff's time in the coming year, I think these are really valid and very important pursuits. These 2 specifically, right? And this one, I think what we've talked about is this gives the opportunity for the town manager to determine which areas are going to continue to improve in a given year, and we may not know that right now. But I do think that these are also not the policy goals, right? These are the administrative goals or the management goals, and it makes sense, like Lynn said, that we wouldn't know all the ins and outs. But I think also because of that, this particular one makes sense for Paul to do first, and then for the council to discuss after. Athena?
I would appreciate having it in the goals, both of those points, because the goals tell us how to prioritize our time. And Paul and I having a conversation is one thing, but the council saying that we agree with that conversation and we want you to move that forward will help tell us that that it's important to you, and then we can report on our achievements at the end of the year because they're your achievements too. But if you take it out, then it's just something that we're doing that doesn't necessarily it isn't reflected in that council goal discussion. So I would appreciate it being left in. I think
So
the first point also, sorry, the first point
You're fine.
also, I mean, talking about exploring efficiencies and stuff is something that I think it goes in as part of that conversation. So I think both of those points are important to leave in, but just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a couple, I'm keeping an eye on time. We've got some other things to discuss and we need to finish this. So I want to just talk through, there's a couple more things that Mandy put in that I want to discuss. We can keep these all in for discussion of the council. There are a couple I absolutely do not think are actionable, like speed up the hiring process for vacant positions. I don't think that I would assume, Paul, that you're doing everything that you can to go as fast as you can here. Obviously, we want that sped up as much as possible, but sorry, I'm going to start at the top. We moved this under the strategic planning. I won't do it until I tell you about it. Sorry. We moved this under strategic options. Was talking about the possibility of exploring learning opportunities. The next one that Mandy said was undertake a review of salary and supervisory responsibilities to ensure that there's no gender bias in salaries, promotions, or job responsibilities. This is a biggie. I think this is one that the council could discuss, but Paul, I wanted to hear from you on if this is feasible, from your perspective.
Which one again?
Sorry, I just talked so fast.
Yeah.
Undertake a review of salary and supervisory responsibilities to ensure there is no gender bias in salaries, promotions, or job
When we did the
responsibilities.
pay and cost study, that was included in that, and that was actually one of the big topics for conversations with the
Okay.
HR director.
All right. So I'm gonna take this out. Oh gosh. Athena, I might need a recording of this meeting to be able to write the report. If that's possible, because this is so much. Speed up hiring process for vacant positions. Again, Paul, is this feasible?
Well, I mean, we do it sometimes it's just not possible. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, the charter dictates the time for department heads and which is 6 months. You know, with planning director, we were just talking about it today, that, you know, it's kind of not the biggest pool in the world. And so I think we're challenged by getting the recruit, you know, do we go out and recruit more often, you know, more aggressively? It's a hard market. So I don't know what we would do to speed it up other than to make irresponsible decisions.
Fair.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Any objections to me taking this out? Okay. This next one, I do not like how it's worded, but I like the spirit of it. I think that this is one, Paul, I'm curious about your plans with you've got a new communications director who's doing a great job. This to me feels like it's asking for a, almost like a triage map, right? Like I need help with this, go here. It's almost like a dashboard. I don't know what form it takes, but I think that that's to me, that's what this reads like. It's getting some clearer messaging for resident assistance. And I'm not opposed to that as a goal, but it's definitely a very clear directive. So I wanted to check in with the committee and with you. Councilor Ryan.
At least in part, this is TPC. Do you know what TPC is?
No.
Transportation and Parking Commission.
Mm.
Part of what the goal of that is to address this in an area where a lot, not all by any means, but a lot of the complaints and frustration come dealing with areas related to parking and transportation. So if we finally do create that body, I think that will address some of this, I think. Other than that, I mean, we already have all kinds of ways people can, you know, see-click works really well, ways in which people can communicate. But the biggest area, I think, where there is confusion and, you know, some frustration with issues related to transportation and parking. So I hope that in the next 6 months to a year at the most, we'll have a body that will address that.
George, I see this is actually broader
So
than
I'm
that.
not.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if George is cutting in or out if I am, but I actually see this as broader than
No, I know
that.
it covers more ground than that, but yeah, I'd like to go have a go.
It's
I'll have you
no,
do it.
it's more of being like you have an issue with any of this laundry list of things, you go talk to the Transportation and Parking Commission. You have an issue with, you know, a wetland that you need to build a porch on, you talk to Concom, like that kind of thing. Versus, I see your point, and I think that will help, but I think this is almost zoomed
So
out.
the
Paul,
communications director
I
is
see it
something
as a
to do with-
communications
All right.
project,
okay.
but Paul, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I think it's a good goal in terms of helping, at least on our website, and for the counselors to say, here's how you go to get resolution. Some, you know, some communities have had, you know, one call to City Hall where you call one number and they triage it right in
Right.
time. You know, I mean, a lot of the times the complaint isn't, I don't know who to call. It's like, I don't like the answer I got. They didn't say yes right away.
Right.
And I think that that's something we, you know, you're always going to have to deal with
A
that.
whole different issue.
Yeah.
Fair. I just changed this slightly to be determine a method by which, instead of ensure that or whatever it said before, basically saying find the solution to this, not, yeah, I don't know, meaning it should be like a tangible thing. Counselor Ette?
So I actually appreciate that you took out ensure, but there's another word hanging, which is clearly. What
Mm.
would be clear enough for the public and who
I
gets
think that's fair.
I don't
Thank
know.
you.
So we want Paul and his staff in the coming year to work on this.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good goal.
Okay, yeah, okay.
George, I just really enjoy being on a committee with you.
You do.
That was sincere. Genuinely, I do.
Okay, that makes
All
one
right,
of us.
last, did you say that makes one of us? Ensure town departments are not duplicating services of a similar nature. This feels so big and broad and impossible to me. I don't, Paul, please do this generally, but like, I don't think that
Right.
this is a
Is
fair
there a-
goal.
Particular reference that we can,
Exactly. What
No,
do we have
there's
in
no
mind?
comment.
Right,
It's
exactly.
this was just put in. Just make it so.
Make it go
Ah,
away.
okay. Oh my God.
I'm afraid, yeah,
Wise.
I know, yeah.
I'm starting to lose it, gang.
No, it's okay. I think
Well, I think we're all been at it a long time, yeah.
yeah.
We're close, but we're not close.
So a lot of these are really, we can kind of bunch these. Do we want to say that Paul, we specifically took out items like this? We specifically took out propose a balanced fiscal year 25 budget, and we thought that that was kind of implied.
Yes, yes.
So do we want to keep that as our rule? To not include this? This was in here and we took it out.
It should come out, I think.
Great. Similarly, make sure fees, like this is all, I think we
This is
took out
right,
the
right.
specificity of the charter. Mandy put it back
Right.
in. Done. Same here. This was something from the chart. Go
Did we
ahead.
pick up what George suggested?
Yeah, we already covered it. Oh, no, management goals. Sorry. This is still financial goals. We're about to move into the last one.
These are Mandy's, other people's.
These are
financial
Mandy's,
goals.
yeah. So that was it for administration and leadership. Last one, gang. George, you had infrastructure management
That's it, and land stewardship, yes.
and
right,
land stewardship.
right.
Um,
And the language of the objective was
you maintain and manage the counts capital and
capital
public
and public
assets.
assets, right?
So you
Yeah.
took out the objective on major capital.
Yes, exactly. I think we all agreed it should go under the general,
Okay.
right, that should just be an action item under this larger category.
So this is one of the things that we would take out because it's a charter given.
No.
So what, George, you had in here,
No, this is Mandy.
no, I'm pulling
Oh, I'm
yours,
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah,
Pulling yours over. We're almost there. We're almost there, gang. I'm gonna delete the things that you had crossed out. Okay. Continue to make progress on the 4 major capital building investments. I actually think I like Mandy's edits here. She was really specific on what progress she'd like to see made. I'd like these. I would rather have these. I think that there's the recognition that things shift and change, but personally, I think I like the specifics.
Mhm.
Paul,
yeah,
Paul,
yeah,
you're
so
unmuted.
we're gonna start with one building committee, not just like we had previously.
Okay, so DPW, is that right? Or
It's form of DPW fire.
Oh, it's gonna be
a single
but-
committee.
okay.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. So let me,
Well, yeah, okay.
okay.
I would say to appoint a building committee, Friends S, to, make progress with the fire and DPW buildings.
To make progress, yes. The fire and DPW buildings, right? Good.
Okay.
Good.
Then
That first,
Mandy
yeah.
specified
Get rid of a lot of the other stuff under that then.
what?
No.
What? Not yet. Hang on.
Okay.
So the other 3 things that Mandy had Present schematic designs for the DPW with cost estimates, goal of going out to bid and should that be calendar
It
year
should be FY
2026?
year.
No, I think she
has
meant
calendar
calendar
year, she
year.
has calendar
Yeah,
year.
it took me
Okay,
a
fine.
second.
Right.
Sign a contract and break ground and sign a contract and break ground.
Okay.
I
Go for-
personally will say I prefer that specificity to just make progress.
Fine.
But
But I don't have total control over the Jones Library project.
okay, that's fair. So
With the news today, I think we'll be signing a contract really soon for the elementary school.
mhm.
Right. Good news.
Should I just take this? I could change this to seek to or something instead of an absolute, or work with the trustees to try to get this.
Um,
I don't know how to phrase it.
Yeah, what's the problem here?
well, we might not get through the section 106 process.
Yeah, and all sorts of other things could happen too, but
Yeah.
your thought is because that's still outstanding, the council should not have as a goal for this year to
I
have
think
this-
town manager goals are goals that the town manager can accomplish.
Yeah,
Can we put in something that says continue to work with the Jones Library Board of Trustees? My brain's to the point where I have to write it.
I think so. The debate within the council is going to be, wait a minute, there's not enough money raised on the other side of the ledger, the non-town side, so you shouldn't sign a contract. That's going to be an issue that will come up to the council. So I think being definite about if this is a goal that you want this built, I think I'm just rethinking what, maybe it is to be more very specific about sign a contract and break ground.
that's the language I would like, and if people want to raise objections to it, they can at the council.
Can I keep this first part, or do you just want the second part? I
would keep
deleted it. Sorry. Because Paul would be the one signing the contract, so
Yes.
it would make sense to just keep the second part. All right. George, we had renovation of the senior
Yes, I think
center
that under a
above.
different category, so I think we can take that out.
I don't think that we need
This was a
these-
request, yeah, okay, all right.
No, say, go ahead.
That, and I don't know where I got it, and maybe it's me, but the 5-year capital plan, the CIP,
Mhm.
now has to be rethought in terms of in context with the larger finance plan that we now have. In other
They were
words,
in last year's goals.
That's what I thought.
so now it's a $3 million a year capital CIP, right? And given the finance plan that we've been presented, all 4 options have a very specific number for capital. It's the same number for all 4 plans. And the question
Okay.
was raised, how does the 5-year CIP work in light of that?
Okay,
Yeah,
let's keep it in.
so well, that's the thought.
No, I think that's wise. This one feels like one of those ongoing things that we should take out.
Okay,
It was maintain the inventory, Lynn.
Yeah.
Propose a plan to develop options for disposition of public-private development of town-owned unused properties. George, did you put this in?
It was last year.
it was
That's
in
what I
last
thought.
year's, yeah, and it's ongoing, and we're still waiting, I think. Paul can speak to this, but I think it's ongoing.
Paul, is this in your mind a worthy goal?
It's fine. Yeah, we can have that on.
Okay. I really want this one in here.
Mhm,
Maintaining the list of future road and sidewalk repairs.
mhm,
I do want to say annually though.
mhm.
Go ahead.
I
That's
think
fine.
regularly.
Yeah,
Annually
that's
is
fair.
annually is
That's how we-
good.
That's how we do
I
it, yeah.
can't spell annually right now. Is that right?
That's
It's
that's
not
pretty
showing.
close. That's close
Okay,
enough.
looks like there were too many letters. Assess the current condition of the wastewater treatment plant.
That's fine.
So there's concern about that particular facility, and I think there's a desire to have a sense of where it stands and what the plan is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
Last one.
you're kidding.
I'm not kidding.
All right, the
Hold
language
on.
here
What-
is, oh,
And in addition to assessing the current condition of the wastewater treatment plant,
Uh-huh.
somewhere in here, I'd like to stress that we come up with a cost of joining our systems. It's all about, like
Yeah.
Leverett wants to build this, big new complex, but they want to come into our water and sewer.
Yep. Identify,
I am still awake, but barely.
I know, me too. I'm trying.
So,
We're all doing
again,
great.
Go
We're
one
doing great.
resolution, one resolution.
just the cost to the town of Amherst, when it, I'm not, just what is the, in joining? I don't even know what's being.
Identify the cost to
Paul might have
outside
some-
municipalities when connecting to our of outside municipalities when connecting to our water, sewer and water systems, I guess.
By that, do you mean, how much we're gonna
Uh,
charge them? Or, I mean, we don't care how much it costs them. That's their
The
problem.
initial,
that's
the
what's throwing
initial
me.
cost.
Identify,
It should be
In-
of, not to.
Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah, I would say propose an entry fee or
that makes more
entry
sense.
fee
Thank
versus, because the cost might be different than you want to charge as an entry fee.
for outside municipalities when connecting to the town of Amherst
when,
water
not
and
to.
sewer systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last, lordy. Okay. George, you had community and strategic relationships,
Yes, they
and
did.
your outcome was,
To maintain, develop, and increase positive relationships and communications with the town council, residents, and local and state entities.
I know, I'm trying to copy and paste it. Okay, so this was George's.
I like it.
You like it because it's 9:02.
No, I like it because I like it.
No, I know.
Yeah, no, I think this is fine. I
All
think
right,
it's
but
good.
anyways, it's the end of desire, however foolish, to put each of these into a single.
I know, I don't like it, but
I
it's
know- I
fine.
know you don't.
Paul, sorry, Paul, is your hand still up or is that linger, old
He's-
one?
He's
I
too
think he's
tired
fine.
to even take his hand down. It's,
That's okay, he took his hand up. Mandy Jo had something, implement a system of two-way communication for issues. I don't know that this is within our
I-
control. I don't want to put this in here.
I agree.
Do we
I
have
mean,
to keep it in there because we kept the other things in there, even if we didn't agree with them?
and she
I
can.
guess
depend-
Paul this feels like a software question, not a goal.
Yeah, it's a pretty it's two-way system.
I don't even know what it
Sorry,
means.
I don't know why this is all so funky, but maybe I can
I
fix
mean,
it.
we
There
already
go.
have a two-way system. We already have a two-way system. It's just
Yeah, send it to
a lot of
666,
complications to it
yeah.
because
So take it out, and if she wants it, she can
Okay.
bring it up.
Provide appropriate support for council committees. This
That-
is,
This is.
That's
Paul
a
does a great
given.
job with that. Yes, they do a great job with that.
Well,
I think all of these,
Yeah, these all need to.
meet
yeah.
with each counselor individually at least twice a year
That's-
is
get-
no,
No,
but I
get
don't,
rid
I
of
think
it.
that should
No.
just, okay,
Take it out.
okay.
Get
All
rid
right,
of
all
it.
right. Don't get chippy with me.
Hey, we're
I
not
didn't
chippy.
write it. All right. These are gonna go away. I know. It's just gonna yell at me if I try to delete them now. George, you had done some great work that I will now
Okay.
copy and paste over. Hang on. Stand by.
Yeah, I put in a lot here. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. A lot of it's crossed out. I'm just assuming we just delete all of that, right?
That's what I'm suggesting, but we have to look at it. I mean, again, this is kind of boilerplate. I don't know.
I don't know what this means, but it's
Yeah. I mean, Paul already does this and the staff does it, and I don't know.
Basically just gives us an opportunity to tell us what he does.
yeah.
Which is good. I mean, I don't know.
Paul, have you implemented the plan for community visioning? Did we do that? Sorry, I can't have any more documents open. What'd you say?
well, yeah, that's what Pamela, the DEI department's doing.
Right.
Great.
They're not creating it, they're doing it. So
It's called the Beloved Community stuff.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, this I'm comfortable because we have the other action item above about fleet transitions. That's the only reason I'm okay getting rid of this. I would like it, well, I guess, is the dashboard? No, the dashboard does this. Okay. Reevaluate committee charges. This is cold. Did we write that before? To ensure they're contributing to the municipality? That's so
Right.
cold.
Yeah.
Oh,
Luckily I
this
wasn't
wasn't,
there.
and then you took it out.
Right.
So this is her two-way thing, right?
Yeah, but it was in, you put it in yours.
But I struck it out.
Yeah,
That
you
makes
did.
sense. Um, I think Paul does this already. I don't think it's needed, the next one.
Oh, you know what's making my day is some of these are duplicates. Okay. Um,
Assist, support, and communicate with the council regarding its work through policy, leadership development, and revising legislation. Establishing, I mean, is that necessary?
I don't think it's necessary. I think that's like show up to our meetings and
They-
do the
they-
goals. Like
they
we're
do-
basically
yeah,
saying do
right.
the
Yeah,
goals.
Yeah. I think in the end, the only one that survived this, or one of the only ones, was please report back to us on progress related to these goals.
I
Which
want to
was-
say, I just want to, Paul, I would like to give you kudos. The uptick that I have visibly noticed in the past year of you giving us advanced warning about things and all of that it's noticeable and appreciated. And I can't remember if I wrote that in my evaluation, but I just wanted to say that now. We can take this out, but it feels like it has increased in a really helpful way. So thank you. I think that this is not an action item. I think this is in the introduction to the goals. We say,
I
talk
agree.
to us regularly. I'm going to comment it and move it later. Oh goodness, this is not action item.
I agree with that,
B.
definitely.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons why taking out and report back to the council. Hello?
Yeah.
These are our goals. You report on them.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
This
don't
is
want
good.
positive relationships anymore. That's fair. George struck the word develop positive relationships. So I do think that's actually, George, I actually like it. I think continue to communicate, collaborate, and partner with UMass Amherst, Amherst College, Hampshire College, particularly in areas related to housing economic. It's a little redundant, but I think it's fine.
And I took out the last bit, which may be a problem for some people, but
We don't have strategic
I-
partnership agreements with these institutions, so it's not fair to put
only,
it in
we
there.
only have it with one of them,
Yep.
and I think there are going to be some counselors who are going to want something more specific about what they expect to get back from our college and university partners. I don't think that's appropriate, but we'll have to fight that out at council.
Before we completely delete that, I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I am vehemently opposed. I want to disclose. I'm not opposed to this because I work for Amherst College. I'm opposed to this because this is not under Paul's control. I think that many counselors would like to see an action item that
Right.
says
pursue,
pursue a strategic.
yes,
So, but I
that's the
think
wrong word.
this language is really good. So I would like to say pursue strategic partnership agreements with each institution that does not have one.
Okay.
That provide financial and community benefits to the town of Amherst.
Sounds
I
good.
would prefer that.
You got it.
Do your best.
Take the strike throughs off.
I got you. All
Okay,
right.
well, again, we have one with UMass, and that's set for 5 years.
I
It
said
is-
with
it
each
is-
institution that does not have one.
Well, oh, it says, okay, all right, fine.
I'm a half step ahead, barely.
Okay.
So the only thing here is,
People wanted more about community engagement. and
Yeah.
I didn't really know what to do or say about that, so.
I
other
think we've
than-
got it. I do actually think we have it in a couple other places. We could move it, but I don't think we need to. All right. So folks, that does it. Well done. You're not done with me yet. I need 3 of us to stay for 5 more minutes. I think I did all the work for you. Not for you. I
You
think I
did.
did my job as chair here, so it'll be easy, but
I
we
looked
need
at
to
what you
vote
did.
thank you. We need to vote to send this to council, I believe. Yes? Oops.
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to
I
do
moved to
something with
send
these.
a cleaned up version of this, of the goals to the council for their discussion on December 16th.
Is there a second?
Ryan, second.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call Counselor Ette.
Aye.
I am an I, Lynn.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
All right, and Pat is absent. Athena.
I think even with the vote that you just took, it's fair for you to go and do the cleanup and then share it with the
Okay,
DOL members. And then they can send you any final edits or anything before, so that when you send it in with your report, they've had a chance to see it.
that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Copy, send clean copy to. All right, GOL members, I am gonna do my very best to clean this up tomorrow morning while
We
it's
can
still fresh
release
in my
Paul.
head.
Paul, thank you very much.
Paul, thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul.
Feel
And
better, Paul.
Athena
Athena
and Paul,
as well,
thanks
yeah.
for your
Yeah,
input.
Athena. Athena, you can't leave, but thank you.
You have to
Good
stay.
leave.
I mean, you can do whatever you want, really.
You
As
can
long as
leave.
you
I
make
can
one of
end the
us
meeting.
make one of us a host, we're fine.
I'm already host, so.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right, so
You
Ken-
can
leave. All right, friends. So really quickly, we need to talk about the Bee City one. I am one of the sponsors of it, as well as
Is there a
Bob
time, I'm
Hagan.
sorry, a question if you may, Madam Chair, is there actually a time on this? Is this like, if it isn't done in the next 2 weeks, all hell breaks loose? Or can't we?
Well, I'm
wait?
about to explain to you why this is not relevant. I spoke the reason why. Much of what's in that resolution is very actionable and includes budgetary or includes directives towards staff. So the sponsors connected, and we are deciding to withdraw that resolution at this time. All of the sponsors agreed to that, and so we will be withdrawing and figuring out our next steps instead of
Okay.
bringing it forward. Councilor Ette, is that a really clumsy thing
That's
of the?
a smooth description of it, actually. Thank you.
Okay.
Is
Thank
that, I
you.
may ask, is that because it has financial or budgetary implications and hence
Yeah.
you would more normally have to go to FinCom as well?
Yeah, well, resolutions and proclamations are non-binding, so they can't direct.
Okay, and if you
Change.
actually want something to be accomplished, you're gonna have to go a different way. Okay.
It'd have to be a bylaw.
All right. I'll-
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So, well, hey, you never know what bee I might get in my bonnet. All right, so let's talk about. There was a pun, and I intended it. It's fine.
I know.
It's
It was
late.
good. It's
Thank
good.
you.
It's too late for
Okay.
puns.
All right, I'm just trying to download one quick thing. I did get some feedback from the DEI department. Why can't I view it in normal? I don't see. Oh no. All right, well, let's start with ours. Okay, so this was what I marked up and put in the packet. I did get the sponsors confirmation on a couple of these. So I added in Sankofa Gumbo, excuse me, as a community sponsor that was confirmed by the council sponsors of this. And I'm just looking really quickly because I also had reached out to our DEI team. And the only edit he said was that I had 2024. Wait, no, it should be 2024.
Down below, make sure it says
Oh my
20.
God, I was sent them, sorry, I was just looking at something different. I sent them a totally different one. I had checked with the DEI department to see if they were doing anything for Kwanzaa, and there is a reading of the proclamation that I want to add in here, but I got that after I'd sent this in, so I'll add that when we get down to the bottom here. But let's go line by line until we get there, and I'm just going to add it as a comment so I don't forget. Counselor Ette?
Could you expand the size a bit?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. That work?
Yep.
All right. So any issues? Any issues with the change in the title?
No.
All right.
Sponsor's fine.
Just delete my comment.
Does the community sponsor have any kind of organizational affiliation, or is it just an individual?
This is an organization.
So, well, that's the name of an organization.
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay,
Yep.
my ignorance, thank you.
no worries. I did some grammatical changes here.
does
I hope-
Counselor Ette agree with them? As
I
the
don't know. I'm a
grammarian?
little scared.
I
I
know.
thought I did well, but now I don't know. Any issues with these?
No.
Okay, great. I'll take out the F in a second, or just do it now. Okay. Oh, and in gathering is just one word. Okay. Added quotes here around the phrases.
Yes.
Any issues here?
No,
Okay. It's just easier to just do it this way. Any issues here?
no,
Any issues here?
no.
I changed this around a little because it was really confusing to me. Whereas in 1997, the United States Postal Service issued the first Kwanzaa stamp, and the first presidential declaration of Kwanzaa was made, with declarations being made every year since.
Good.
I like it.
Okay.
Just accept the whole thing.
Well, okay. All right, I will. Anything here? I
Good.
spelled Massachusetts wrong, but other than that,
That's all right. Just call it the Commonwealth.
no. Oh yeah. So my
Oh,
my
this
thought
is
was
2024.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I didn't write that. This felt like a now therefore, but I'm just gonna I'm inclined to just leave it because then I have to write more text.
It needs to, I would put it now there for all of this and specifically invite people to that event.
Okay, so you're saying break it here.
And
Now
invite
therefore,
all, yeah, go ahead.
because there's
And
another
invite-
event we have to add in too. So
Okay, so,
So
and
it feels like
invite
a
all
long-
residents to join in celebrating learning through our event and then that event.
So December 26th at 5 p.m.
yeah. 4.
Oh, boom. Good.
So then delete this.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any other changes?
Nope.
Do I
move
have a
we-
motion?
Yes, I move that we declare the, go to the top.
Oh, sorry. It's yep, sorry.
The Town of Amherst proclamation recognizing Kwanzaa Week 2024 is clear, consistent, and actionable.
A second.
Thank you. Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Counselor Ate,
Aye.
and I am an I as well, and we have one absent. All right, folks. Hey, you did it. Great
That's
work,
it. There are no more
everybody.
proclamations?
No,
Oh, that's it.
You sure?
yeah.
George.
I don't want to miss
I'm sure
any.
there were no other ones on the agenda. We have one more meeting this year on the 19th. GOL, we will come together on that date. We will have a proclamation at that time.
I heard we're meeting at the archives. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody
Um,
bring their Zoom.
We
All
can
right.
Zoom at archives.
Thank you. They've got
We
great Wi-Fi.
can.
Been
Yeah.
in the back room there.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No,
I
I
so
really
moved.
want to stay in this.
No, I
meeting.
know. Lynn
I
wants to
love
stay.
having
I
these
so
nights with you
moved.
all, but thank
I
you.
so moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right. Counselor Ate?
Aye.
I think I heard an I.
Aye, yes, you did.
Okay, good. Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and I am an I as well. Can someone just remind me who moved? Lynn, you moved to the Kwanzaa, and then who
I
seconded
did.
it?
And
Who se-
any number of people seconded it.
George did. Okay.
Yeah.
Or no, Council
I
Ete
think
did
Rick
because,
did,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much and have a lovely rest of your day. Athena
Yes,
was
in Rio,
over
yeah.
us.
Good night.
Thanks.
Okay.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Good
Bye.
night.